Chapter 191. Excluding ZD, there were a total of 16 people on the 3 landing boats. Each boat had a large amount of supplies: food, water, weapons, and equipment. On the boat ZD was on, there was a coffin-shaped wooden box. The wind was blowing and the waves were surging. They could avoid the nearest beach, away from the shipwreck site of the Pig's Kiss, and choose another beach to disembark. Quickly row, ZD kept urging. Not far behind the 3 boats, there was a huge black shadow in the sea, quickly approaching them. The other 16 people knew that they were in danger and used all their strength to drive the 3 boats forward quickly. I can't use my magic or do chi. Damn it, I hope the situation on the island is different. My authority doesn't allow me to use magic freely. ZD gritted her teeth, looking at the huge black shadow in the sea getting closer and closer. Her heart couldn't help but beat wildly. Fortunately, as they approached the beach, the giant figure in the sea gradually stopped moving and slowed down to the lowest speed. The 3 boats successfully reached the beach. Quick, move the supplies quickly. ZD was the first to jump onto the beach. The other guards were in a hurry, quickly emptying the 3 boats. Everyone rejoiced. What exactly is this huge black shadow? Is it the cause of the shipwreck? Fortunately, it gave up in the end. We were about to be caught, but it hesitated. I have a bad feeling. I have a feeling that it is scared. Maybe there is something on the island that threatens its life. In the end, Miss ZD, why are we here? ZD snorted. You should thank me for saving your lives first, shouldn't you? The guards' expressions were a little awkward. ZD didn't think that there would be a backup plan after the captain's death. The shipwreck happened too suddenly. ZD tried her best, but only managed to take away 16 guards and a large amount of supplies. She managed to snatch 3 landing craft in advance and led the group away. This is the island of confusion. I want to find the alchemy factory. Where is it? After ZD logged in, she was directly teleported to the alchemy factory. She did not know the specific location. Some of you have been hired by me, and some of you are old guards of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. Just do as I say. Now, let's depart immediately. By the way, protect this wooden box well. The things inside are very important. You have to protect it, just like you protected me. Understood, Miss ZD, President. The guards looked at each other for a moment before replying. As the group went deeper into the rainforest, the island gradually revealed its ferocious and terrifying side. The bloodline centipede died under the blades of the guards. What kind of magical beast is this? Does anyone know? It looks like both a centipede and a snake. I've never heard of it before. Let's call it the blood-flying snake, ZD said. That's not important. We have to keep moving forward. We have to move fast. Wait a moment. Magic crystals are very valuable. Sir President, I killed this snake. Can you let me take its magic core first? The caravan's guard pleaded. This idiot. ZD sighed and nodded helplessly. She had visited the alchemy factory and knew that this kind of modified magical beast did not have a magic core from the pointy drill. The rest of the people looked at this lucky guy with a slightly envious gaze. It was not difficult to cut open the blood-flying snake, but after dissecting it, the guard's excitement suddenly disappeared. He was surprised and doubtful. What's going on? There is no magic core. This life force is obviously from a magical beast. I'm not sure. Since there is no magic core, let's go. ZD urged again. However, things did not go as planned. The group moved slower and slower. The complicated landscape of the rainforest often made people hesitate. The extremely dense vegetation hid dangerous magical beasts, so the group had to move forward carefully. If they were careless, their lives would be in danger. After the guards repeatedly admonished her, ZD had no choice but to bow her head in the face of reality. Then let's build a campsite and rest. After resting for 2 days, the group continued to move forward. However, the deeper they went into the rainforest, the more terrifying the dangers they encountered. When they reached the 3rd campsite, someone suggested again, "We have brought too many resources. Actually, a large part of our physical strength is used to transport the resources. We feel that it is feasible to leave a portion of the resources here. ZD thought for a while and felt that it was not a bad idea. If the group was defeated in the future and the resources were lost, they still had a way out. I underestimated the danger level of the Mystery Island. If I knew that magic was forbidden here, I would have awakened the substitute first. He had a silver cultivation level and was transformed into a were beast at the same time. I was not forbidden in the alchemy factory. Wait, since the war dealer is dead, there must have been a shocking change here. Maybe the Mystery Island was originally free, but the change brought about a forbidden environment. Is this one of the war dealer's defensive measures? ZD had a lot of guesses in her heart. After entering the rainforest for more than 10 days, she had completely dispelled the plan of quickly discovering the alchemy factory. This will be a long exploration. But if I succeed, my life will change completely. I will succeed. ZD was very determined. However, a few days later, she suffered a blow to the head. They encountered a silver-level man-made magical beast, the blue dog fox wolf. This extremely cunning magical beast deliberately attacked the guard at the back of the group. It deliberately did not kill him directly, but dragged him and ran wildly. ZD and the group immediately ran and rushed to rescue him. The original formation was in chaos, and the blue dog fox wolf took the opportunity to attack. The crossbows in the hands of the guards seriously injured it, but it killed 3 guards. The guards were furious and wanted revenge. It is a silver-level magical beast. Which one of you is its opponent? Keep moving. ZD's attitude was firm. It is already seriously injured. This is the most dangerous time for wild beasts. But this forest will clean it up. It will be eaten by other beasts. If it has a magic nucleus, maybe I will go. But after so many days, all the magical beasts we killed did not have a magic nucleus. This wolf will not be an exception. ZD's words were very reasonable. Since there was no profit to be gained, after the anger gradually subsided, no one was willing to risk their lives to take revenge. Moreover, to search for a wolf in this vast rainforest was very difficult. What they did not expect was that when they did not look for the wolf attacked them again. This time, the blue dog fox wolf brought back a beehive, and the poisonous fire bees attacked the whole camp. 4 guards were stung, and their injuries were so serious that they fell into a coma. ZD tried her best to save them, but it was useless, and in the middle of the night, they all died. The blue dog fox wolf's attack did not stop, and after that, it attacked again and again, pestering ZD and the rest, becoming a nightmare that they could not get rid of. The situation forced ZD and the rest to increase their speed, so they began to reduce their supplies. The substitute's wooden box was cumbersome and could only be abandoned in one of the campsites. Only then did everyone know that there was a person hidden in the wooden box. He is my fiancé, Lord Jinjin. You all know that we are here to help him. But in fact, we used a scheme to secretly help him sneak into White Sand City and catch his competitors off guard. ZD explained. So that's the case. No wonder the president is so nervous about a wooden box. But why has Master Jinjin been in a coma? ZD sighed. It is not easy to hide from those competitors. Originally, we were going to wake him up when we reached White Sand City. But now that there is an accident, I have no choice but to hope that he will wake up on his own. After that, no matter how dangerous the situation was, ZD kept the substitute by her side. The situation is getting worse. He is my last safeguard. But waking the substitute was extremely difficult. ZD could not use magic, and forcibly using the memory crystal in this anti-magic environment was very likely to fail, and the success rate was very low. It would be fine if he couldn't wake ZD up, but if there was an accident during the process of waking ZD up and the substitute found out that ZD wasn't ZD, it would be hard to guarantee what he would do to ZD in his anger. President, run. We have to stop it. The last 2 guards chose to stay and stall for time, and their fates were self-evident. ZD gritted her teeth and dragged the sleeping substitute away with difficulty. Whoosh, whoosh. ZD's mouth was wide open, and she breathed with all her might, even though her chest was already aching. She was sweating profusely, and as a magician, her delicate body was bursting with astonishing power, which surprised even herself. Maze Island is too dangerous, but I shouldn't die here, and I can't die here. Faster, faster. Suddenly, a shrill scream came from afar. The girl trembled, as if she was electrocuted. They were killed too. The girl's face was pale, and her eyes were filled with panic. It's okay, I still have a substitute. When her gaze fell on the boy on the stretcher behind her, she became determined again. Climbing trees and crossing rivers, ZD temporarily got rid of the blue dog fox wolf. But she quickly realized that her life was still hanging by a thread. Then there's only one last choice left. A determined light flashed in the girl's eyes. She took out the memory crystal and began to activate it. The girl became more and more anxious and whispered, "Faster, faster. I beg you, hurry up and activate it." As if it heard the girl's pleas, the milky white crystal finally began to shine faintly, and it was almost undetectable. As expected, most magic was forbidden on this island, but that was only relative. As long as the grade is high enough, it can be used. It's just that its power and effect are greatly reduced. Just as ZD had expected, the blue dog, the fox, and the wolf once again rushed over. It pounced in the air, and the shadow of death enveloped the girl's body and mind. Am I going to die here? At the moment when ZD was in despair, the substitute suddenly opened his eyes. He was awakened by the roar of a beast and kicked the blue dog fox wolf fiercely, sending it into the river. Then the boy supported himself with both hands on the ground and stood up, glaring angrily. I was saved. He was successfully awakened by me. ZD's pupils shrank, and her breathing stopped. Looking at the boy's thin back, she felt a strong sense of security. Chapter 192. The blue dog fox wolf was kicked into the river by the double, which quickly activated the golden demon plant hidden in the river. The wolf struggled, howling, and the waves of blood dissipated together. Soon, the river returned to calm. The double witnessed all this and was shocked. What the hell is this place? He began to look around in horror and finally turned to the girl ZD. Where is this? ZD was also stunned by the python vines in the river, and the double's words made her heart jump. The danger of the blue dog fox wolf was resolved in a very thrilling and unexpected way. The main accident and danger now came from the double who had just saved her life. There was a problem with the memory crystal infusion. ZD needed to test the double's condition. My lord! ZD was extremely excited. Like a frightened kitten, she threw herself into the arms of the substitute. The double looked at the girl in his arms and was at a loss for a moment. Thank God, sir, you're finally awake. The girl excitedly hugged the double tightly. Sir, you're awake. The double patted her shoulder and then gently pushed ZD away. ZD looked up at the double, excitement and surprise overflowing in her words. The double looked at the girl in his arms, and suddenly his heart seemed to skip a beat. Her delicate face was full of weakness, and her eyes were red as if she was about to cry. Her pair of purple eyes were so beautiful that they reminded people of gemstones, and there was a hint of charm in their brilliance. Excuse me, who are you? ZD immediately showed a perfect look of surprise. She couldn't help but widen her eyes and look up at the double, her eyes motionless. They looked at each other for a few seconds. ZD's face gradually showed surprise and worry, and she hurriedly introduced herself. I'm ZD, sir. I'm your fiancé. Fiancé? The double frowned. ZD. The double chewed on the name. After thinking deeply, the double frowned even more. Wait a minute, who am I? ZD's heart skipped a beat. Most of the memories were not instilled. He doesn't even know who he is. You're Zhenjin. You're Baron Zhenjin. My God, my lord, have you even forgotten your own identity? The young girl hurriedly reminded him, the anxiety and uneasiness on her face matching her inner feelings. Zhenjin, I'm Zhenjin. Why can't I remember anything? Oh my God, how did this happen? ZD's heart raced as she began to fabricate a lie. Perhaps Your Excellency's head suffered a violent blow, so you temporarily lost your memory. There are indeed similar cases here. Sir, we encountered a shipwreck a few days ago. The storm swept through, the ships were broken, and the survivors were stranded on this island. There are many people who have gone missing, including you, sir. When I followed the clues and found you in the depths of the rainforest, you were already unconscious. I tried many methods, but I couldn't wake you up. At this point, she changed the topic and began to tell the truth. Wait, perhaps it was because the method I used to save you was destroyed midway. If this is the truth, then I'm really sorry, my lord. At that time, I didn't have any other choice. ZD pointed at Zhenjin's chest, where many crystal fragments were still attached. Zhenjin lowered his head and saw the crystal fragments attached to his chest. So it was you who saved me? Then, the young girl told the substitute in detail what had just happened, as well as why she took the risk to use the white crystal to save the substitute at the last moment. A lie mixed with truth and falsehood would be even more difficult to see through. Moreover, the memory crystal fragments were scattered at the scene, so forcibly covering it up would only be a flaw. Calling it the healing tool, Angel's Tear, and taking the initiative to reveal it would give people a feeling of magnanimity, and at the same time, it was a crucial test. So was this dangerous before? It's all thanks to you. ZD. The substitute praised. ZD's heart relaxed, but she whispered guiltily, "But my lord, you might have lost your memory because of this." The substitute hurriedly comforted her. "This is not your fault, ZD. On the contrary, I have to thank you. If you hadn't made such a wise choice, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to wake up in time. At this moment, I must have been eaten by that giant wolf. Let's put the matter of my memory aside first. Right now, the most important thing is to leave this dangerous place." "Very good." ZD was excited. She temporarily stabilized the substitute. "Wait a moment. Perhaps these will be of some help to my lord when he recovers his memory in the future." Before leaving, ZD collected the memory crystals. Who knew if Zhenjin had died in the shipwreck, and the device used to make the memory crystals had also been lost? The shipwreck had happened too suddenly, and ZD had already reached her limit by gathering a group of people and supplies. As for these memory fragments, ZD felt that they might be of great use in the future. "My lord, please let me examine you. I'm a low-level magician. Although I can't use magic right now, my knowledge is still there." Before leaving, ZD made such a proposal. The substitute accepted her examination. The substitute was intact, without any injuries, and at the same time, there were no parts of him that had turned into a beast. This made ZD very relieved. He can accept my examination, which also means that I have gained his initial trust. Come on, ZD. Everything is developing in a good direction. ZD, how old am I? When being examined, the substitute asked. ZD couldn't help but mutter in her heart. "I'm afraid only the war traffickers and Sharp Diamond know your true age." She said, "My lord, you are 16 years old this year. I'm 15. Then I'm also a magician? What kind of strength do I have?" "My lord, you cultivate Do Chi. You are a holy knight." "Holy knight." The substitute was suddenly in a trance. ZD was shocked. "What's wrong?" After a few breaths, the substitute came back to his senses. "My lord, do you remember anything?" ZD looked expectant, but in her heart, she was praying that the instilled memory would not be wrong. "Yes, I remember. When I became a holy knight, the moment when I solemnly took the oath." The substitute replied, "My lord, maybe you could try and see if you can use Do Chi." "No, I don't have any memory of cultivating Do Chi at all. I can't even feel the Do Chi in my body, and I don't know how to use it." The substitute's answer immediately gave ZD a clear grasp of the state of his memory. "Maybe the time hasn't come yet. But it doesn't matter, my lord. At least this proves that your memory can be recovered. It just takes some time." ZD comforted Zhenjin, but in fact, she was also comforting herself. At present, it seems that the memory was instilled, but it was forcibly stopped halfway, causing him to be unable to recall it. But once he recalls it, it's very natural. The substitute has no doubts. Maybe soon, he will be able to recall the key memory. Maybe the environment here can't stop the silver dough chi. ZD was originally in despair, but the awakening of the substitute gave her hope. At the same time, she did not let down her guard. It was difficult for ZD to guarantee that the substitute's memory would not be flawed. Maybe at some point, the substitute would discover his true identity and give malicious feedback to ZD, who had deceived him. The two rested for a while, then set off on their journey. On a mound by the river, the two found a possibility of crossing the river, but they needed to build a temporary bridge. The substitute began to break the tree, but the branches were tough, and he failed. A few more times, and I will definitely be able to break it, ZD observed calmly. The substitute was designed and modified by the war traffickers. His cultivation is silver, and his physical fitness should also be at the level of a silver knight. But at the same time, he is also a half-beast and can shape-shift. Of course, the substitute does not know this at all. Only when he is faced with death and has no choice will he shape-shift. However, the strength of a silver knight should not be unable to break a branch. There is something wrong with the trees here. While thinking, ZD said, Lord Jinjin, these mounds are a little strange. The soil is reddish-brown, and the trees that grow on it also seem to be more resilient than normal trees. Next, the gold-level man-made magical beast, the lava giant tortoise, appeared. In order to drink water, it had a big battle with the python vines in the river and finally left. In a short period of time, seeing two gold-level creatures with her own eyes, ZD's heart was cold. I have underestimated the monster island. With my strength, there is no way I can explore here. The magical beasts hidden in one place can take my life. Sigh. Although the war trafficker's legacy is valuable, it is not something I can touch. ZD had this idea many days ago. The gold-level magical beasts and magical plants. Today's life was hanging by a thread, and the 16 guards were all gone, so she finally changed her mind. Many of the animals and plants on this island are very strange, and I have never seen them before. Let's leave this place quickly, ZD said to Jinjin. The two of them successfully crossed the river and continued to move forward in the rainforest. Right, ZD? Jinjin took the initiative to ask, How is my strength? Sir, the outside world recognizes your strength as dark iron. Recognized by the outside world? Yes. Sir, the strength you usually show is dark iron level 1. But according to my speculation, it must be more than that. Because this time, sir, you are crossing the sea to compete for the position of White Sand City's lord. And the lord of a city must at least have a silver cultivation level to be able to convince the public. ZD had already prepared herself for this question, so she answered it very smoothly. And the deduction ability shown by the substitute made ZD even more vigilant. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the place where the blue dog fox wolf killed the last two guards. Be careful. ZD's warning was too late. Jinjin was still injured by the blood centipede. ZD used medicine to treat Jin's injuries. Fortunately, the centipede's legs are not poisonous. I'm sorry, sir, for causing you to be injured. I should have told you this information earlier. The girl felt guilty and regretful. She was worried that the substitute would find out, so she subconsciously hid a lot of information. The injury of the substitute this time made her understand that she had to tell part of the information to the substitute. This was undoubtedly a test for ZD. Once there was a contradiction and the substitute found out, she would be suspicious of ZD. And the more suspicious she was, the more likely it was not a magical beast that would take her life, but the young knight in front of her. No, he is not a knight at all. He was modified by the war traffickers, and his memory was also tampered with. In essence, he is no different from a wolf or a blood centipede. He is a wild beast, only temporarily deceived by me. Maybe in the future, he will wake up, open the bloody mouth of a wild beast, and swallow me for deceiving him. Chapter 193. Strange. The substitute inspected the corpse of the bloodline centipede. Where is the crystal core of this magical beast? ZD promptly explained. The magical beasts on this island have a strong life force, but there are no magic crystals in their bodies. Perhaps it was because of this that these magical beasts did not display any similar spells. At this point, ZD's mind suddenly flashed with inspiration. Wait, maybe the anti-magic environment on this island was prepared for these magical beasts. These magical beasts were created by the war traffickers. The magic in their bodies may not be balanced, so they can only survive in an anti-magic environment. Once the anti-magic environment disappears, these magical beasts may die or even self-destruct due to the imbalance of magic in their bodies. The more ZD thought about it, the more she felt that this conjecture was correct. Since she came ashore, she had seen many modified magical beasts. If these man-made magical beasts were so powerful, then the war traffickers would have sold them as firearms. But he did not do so. This means that these man-made magical beasts have fatal weaknesses and cannot be used universally. ZD glanced at Jinjin. To be safe, she did not speak of this conjecture. ZD secretly felt that it was a pity. The anti-magic environment may have always been there. When I first came ashore on this island, I was received by Sharp Diamond. At that time, I must have received special treatment. The key now is that we don't know the range of the anti-magic environment. The substitute has a silver-level cultivation. Will he be banned? He can't use chi. Is it because he has amnesia? In short, he is the key to survival now. Let's stabilize him first. At night, by the bonfire, ZD's gaze fell on the substitute's new arm guard and sighed. If you had this iron arm guard earlier, sir, you would not have been injured by the bloodline centipede. Jinjin could not help but feel moved. He could not help but reach out his hand and stroke ZD's hair. ZD trembled slightly. Yes, sir. ZD lowered her head, as if she was frightened by Jin's action. She nervously held her breath, like a kitten. She was really scared because she suddenly thought of something. Jin is a lecher. Did the substitute also inherit this? Moving forward during the day, we were careful. Now it is night, only me and him. If he really has any designs on me, I can't resist at all, and no one will come to save me. But the substitute quickly withdrew his hand and asked faintly, ZD, what kind of person do you think I am? This was a rather difficult question. If she did not answer well, she would be exposed. ZD subconsciously held her breath and thought quickly. After carefully considering the words, she responded, Master Jinjun, I actually don't know much about you. Setting the tone first can avoid a lot of questions. But according to the rumors, sir, you usually do not approach women and are a lone wolf. Even if you encounter a major event, you will not easily reveal your emotions. Saying this, I hope you will not have any designs on me. You spend most of your time in the temple with a solemn and taciturn expression, but your clothing, food, housing, transportation, and every move are elegant and calm, full of the demeanor of a noble. Although you have few friends, you are willing to help others, especially the weak, and help the poor. So, sir, you have always had a good reputation among the lower class. Also, sir, you suddenly made a move this time and successfully joined the competition for the position of City Lord of White Sand City. This seems to have surprised the other temple knights. ZD's words created an almost perfect image of a temple knight. Since he had lost all his memories, this process was to create and control him. As for whether the substitute would become suspicious after learning the truth when he returned to human society, ZD did not care so much. In fact, even if he was suspicious, ZD had already explained in the first sentence. Lord Jinjin, I actually do not know much about you. The substitute did not suspect her. Because of ZD's words, he quickly outlined the image of a shrewd young man in his mind. Just as he was about to continue to ask for more information, a swarm of poisonous fire bees suddenly attacked. Why is there a swarm of poisonous fire bees here? ZD was shocked and almost lost her mind. At this moment, she did not have any loyal guards by her side, only an amnesiac substitute with an unknown character. Under the threat of death, if the substitute abandoned ZD and fled, ZD would not be surprised at all. My life is now in his hands. At this critical moment, an idea flashed in ZD's mind. Got it. These are poisonous fire bees, sir. Run quickly. I will bring up the rear. Hurry up and leave, my lord, ZD shouted. Her voice was filled with urgency, and she seemed to be ready to die. Sir, run quickly. I have medicine that can detoxify the poison, ZD urged again. You go. I will deal with these poisonous fire bees. The substitute chose to stay and block in front of ZD. ZD immediately heaved a sigh of relief. But soon, under the attack of the swarm, the substitute fell into a bitter struggle. Is today destined to be the day of my death? Just as ZD was close to despair, Jean suddenly used the fighting technique 100-needle wind. This is... ZD raised her head, looking shocked and pleasantly surprised. Jean's counterattack gave her hope. As expected of Sir, ZD blurted out, cheering for Jean. One by one, the poisonous fire bees fell to the ground. The 100-needle wind fighting technique was quite effective against these poisonous bees. Sir, ZD was well protected. At this moment, she looked at Jean's back, her eyes reflecting the constantly weakening bonfire, flickering with a bright luster. It seems that the memory crystal has at least imbued some content, but it needs a strong stimulus or a targeted trigger. He has been protecting me all this time, so he must have firmly believed what I said. In the short term, he is still reliable. Damn it, he has been stung too many times. There is too much fire poison in his body. Even if I have medicine, I can't save him. ZD stood behind the substitute, carefully observing and growing more and more worried. The last wave of poisonous fire bees attacked, and the substitute knew that it would be difficult to fight, so he could only pull ZD's hand and turn around to escape. The two of them plunged into the dark forest. Sir, let me stay. I'll distract him, ZD panted. Shut up. Jean stopped abruptly and turned to face ZD. The young girl cried out in surprise and crashed into Jean's arms due to the inertia. The next moment, the young girl's world spun, and her vision changed drastically. When she came back to her senses, she found that she was in Jean's arms and was running wildly. ZD clung to the substitute's hard and broad chest, feeling the strong masculine scent that he emitted due to the vigorous exercise. She had never been hugged by a young man like this before. In her field of vision, there were dark shadows that were attacking her. They were the branches and vines of the rainforest. Because of the substitute's rampage, the branches and vines along the way were broken and torn apart one after another. Is this the feeling of being protected? A trace of indescribable emotion rippled in ZD's heart. But soon, she collected her emotions and calmly took out a medicine from her leather bag. With the help of the medicine's firefly-like faint light, she tried her best to help the substitute to find his way. Then, she used the medicine one by one to try to slow down the pursuit of the poisonous fire bees. The teleportation happened at this stage, but the substitute and ZD were in a very nervous state and did not notice this. In the end, they were forced by the poisonous fire bees and had to escape into the cave. The fire poison acted up, and the substitute was in a very bad state. ZD gradually lost hope. He relied on the last trace of clarity in his mind and said weakly to ZD, Go quickly. But the young girl shook her head violently, tears flashing in her eyes. She said with a sobbing tone, No, sir, I will never leave you. It wasn't easy for me to find you. It wasn't easy for us to get to this point. How could I give up? Without you, my substitute, how could I escape from Confusion Island alone? At most, I will just die like this. I just lost the bet, underestimated Confusion Island, underestimated the war traffickers. I accept this result, but it doesn't mean that I can't afford to lose. An accident happened. The brown monkey bear felt that its territory was invaded and rushed out, driving the poisonous fire bees out of the cave. ZD and the substitute were safe for the time being, but the substitute was in a worse state and was on the verge of death. The substitute drove again, but ZD shook her head and refused. I won't go, I won't give up. Sir, I can make medicine. I can definitely make the right medicine. We still have hope. Please don't give up. Quick, 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 move faster. ZD shouted in her heart as she took out bottles of medicine. In order to save time, she directly poured the medicine on the ground, corroding a small round pit. Simple medicine can't save the substitute. I can only temporarily make a more powerful medicine. ZD, come on. You must succeed. If you save the substitute, you still have a chance to live and escape from here. The young girl's movements were unprecedentedly fast, and the barbarian medicine that she had memorized by heart quickly turned over in her mind. She mixed a few medicines together and then took out many dried leaves and roots from her bosom. She first crushed them into powder and then poured them into the round pit. Gurgle, gurgle, the mixed medicine in the round pit began to bubble, and smoke curled up. ZD knew that her hope of survival was at this moment, and it all depended on whether she could grasp it or not. The huge pressure forced her, and she cried as she made the medicine. In order to pursue the ferocious medicine, she took the risk of mixing in a lot of berserk medicine. She was not confident, but she knew that there was no hope for other methods. Fortunately, the medicine she had concocted had successfully awakened the substitute and dispelled a large amount of fire poison in the substitute's body. But at the same time, the large amount of berserk medicine was also squeezing the substitute's life force. Once the medicine's effect was over, ZD was not sure whether the substitute was dead or alive. The substitute wanted to bring ZD out of the cave, but in the end, they saw the horned black leopards and the brown monkey bear fighting. Because of the obstruction of the horde, the substitute and ZD's escape plan failed, and they could only retreat back into the cave. The brown monkey bear returned victorious and ate a lot of ores to heal its injuries. Once again facing a difficult choice, the substitute awakened Jin's memory. He finally made a decision and rushed towards the brown monkey bear without hesitation. It was a tragic fight. It was completely a life for a life. The substitute's arms were completely broken, and the muscles in his arms had turned into minced meat. There were many fractures in his body, and his internal organs were bleeding badly. The brown monkey bear's sharp claws pierced through the substitute's abdomen, pinning him to the ground. The scorching sharp claws roasted his intestines, skin, and flesh in an instant. In the end, the substitute and the brown bear tore at each other, and both sides perished together. Are they all dead? ZD stood in the same place in a daze, and only after a long time did her body tremble, and she suddenly woke up. She hurriedly ran towards the substitute's body and checked him with a heart of luck. After confirming his death, ZD's emotions became very complicated. First, she was shocked. She had never seen such a tragic fight at such a close distance. Then, she was grateful. He died for me. He was like a real knight, bravely sacrificing himself. No, the war dealer once said, before the transformation, he was already a silver knight. I should have trusted him a little more. Finally, she was lonely and afraid. Now, I'm still the only one left. The substitute was awakened, but after a day and a night, he was dead. In a huge confusion island, in the dense forest, among the endless ferocious magical beasts, only ZD was left alone. How should she go? How should she survive? ZD had no answer, no direction, and she was shrouded in despair. She sat on the ground, leaning on the substitute's body, thinking about her life, thinking about her father's revenge, and recalling the shipwreck. She was sometimes angry, sometimes hateful, sometimes regretful, sometimes in disbelief, and felt like she was in a dream. In the end, she was only a 15-year-old girl. She curled up her body and wrapped her arms around her legs. She felt as if the deathly silent cave had become her tomb. Time passed quietly, and she did not know how long had passed. ZD suddenly raised her head. There were still traces of tears on her face, but her eyes were firm again. No, it's not the last moment yet. I can't give up yet. Even if I'm the only one left, I still have hope of escaping from here. Even if the hope is very small, I will do my best to grasp it. ZD regained her fighting spirit, wiped her tears, and began to move. The first thing she needed to do was to gather the ingredients for the potion. In this environment where magic was forbidden, the most helpful thing was still the potion, especially the potion on the barbarian's leather scroll. However, when she was half kneeling on the ground, collecting the blood of the bear corpse, she heard a soft bang. ZD's heart jumped. She quickly turned around and saw the substitute waking up. An intense shock suddenly struck her, and she exclaimed in her heart, "Impossible! He was clearly dead just now. Resurrected from the dead." For a moment, ZD could not believe what she saw with her own eyes. Because there was no magic here and no divine arts, how could he be resurrected for no reason? Wait. Suddenly, a light flashed in her mind. The substitute was personally modified by the war trafficker. The war trafficker personally admitted that this was his proudest work. Could it be that this is one of the effects of the war trafficker's modification? Thinking about it carefully, it seems very possible. The war trafficker wanted to use a substitute to replace Jinjin. He even used the blood of the golden queen bee. He did his best to modify it. So, it's reasonable that the substitute has the ability to resurrect. In just 1 or 2 breaths, ZD came to her senses. The girl immediately rushed to the substitute's side and shouted in surprise, "Sir, Lord Jinjin, you're awake." Chapter 194. The substitute saw ZD lying on the ground. He wanted to speak, but he could not. His throat and tongue were swollen, making it difficult for him to speak. He could only smile bitterly at the girl. ZD thought quickly and immediately explained to herself, "Sir, the fire poison has flared up again, and the previous medicine is no longer effective. I am making a new medicine. I will definitely succeed. Believe me, sir, you must not give up. I will definitely be able to save you." The substitute nodded, but it was this very slight movement that made him fall into a coma again. ZD was stunned on the spot. No way. He fell into a coma again? She quickly checked the substitute's condition and found that he was in a very bad state. Compared to the previous state of death, he only had 1 more breath. It was like the final radiance of a dying person. Could it be that my guess was wrong? The war traffickers did not set up any means to revive the dead? Maybe it was a fake death. I remember that there was a case recorded in a book. Or maybe the war traffickers did set up a self-saving method, but the effect of this self-saving method could only reach this level. Damn it, am I going to be happy for nothing? ZD gritted her teeth and looked at the substitute who was about to die again. She was very unwilling. Suddenly, an idea flashed in her mind. Wait a minute, most of the fire poison is accumulated in his blood, which is the reason why he is dying. If I expel his poisonous blood, it might reduce the burden on his body and save him. Of course, this method also had a major hidden danger. The substitute had already gone through a fierce battle and lost a lot of blood. If the blood was expelled, he might die from excessive blood loss. But there was no other way. If the poison was not expelled, he would definitely die. If the blood was expelled, there seemed to be a chance of survival. ZD took a deep breath and cut open the blood vessels in the substitute's arm to expel the poisonous blood. Seeing the blood flowing out of the substitute's body, ZD also nervously observed the substitute's condition. She kept calling and sometimes opened the substitute's eyelids to observe his pupils. In an instant, the doppelganger's pupils underwent an inexplicable change. It turned into a beast's eyes with vertical pupils. Its pupils were pitch black, and the whites of its eyes were golden. Seeing such eyes, ZD couldn't move at all. Her mind was also frozen. She couldn't think or escape. It was as if she had met her natural enemy. However, at the next moment, the double's pupils changed once again, taking on the appearance of a human eye. Everything happened so quickly that ZD was in a daze. She almost thought that she was hallucinating. The substitute opened his eyes again and looked around. He found ZD next to him and was drawing his blood. "My lord, I'm treating you. I will draw out your poisonous blood to dilute the fire poison in your body." The substitute remained silent and did not dare to move. His head was still in a state of intense dizziness. If he moved too much, he would be knocked out by this dizziness. The double quietly looked at the top of the cave and died again soon after. Dead again? ZD was stunned, and her heart turned cold again. She opened the double's eyelids and found that his pupils had dilated and his heartbeat had completely disappeared. Just like before, he was completely dead. If it were anyone else, ZD would have given up. However, she knew that the double was personally modified by the war trafficker. The war trafficker had placed great expectations on him. He even used the blood of a legendary level magical beast for this. Just now, the double was in this state and then suddenly revived. Perhaps this time, it was also faking his death. However, this time, ZD waited for a long time, but the double did not revive again. Is there only one chance of revival? ZD checked the double's body and found that his body was very cold. Did he lose too much blood? Is it because I drained his blood that caused him to die completely? ZD began to panic. The potion in my hand can't bring someone back to life at all. It can only rely on his own life potential. He has lost too much blood now. I need to replenish his blood. After a simple test, ZD found that her blood type did not match the double at all. She saw the body of the brown monkey bear, and her gaze paused. Send the bear's blood into his body. He was modified by the war trafficker and has the blood of the golden queen bee. The brown monkey bear is also a man-made magical beast. Both of them have something in common. This is worth a try. At the same time, this was also the only way in front of ZD's eyes. Not long after, the double woke up again. This time, his brows were tightly furrowed as he felt an intense pain. It's working, it's working. ZD could not help but shout. Her heart was extremely excited. Soon, the double closed his eyes again. He died again. ZD was dumbfounded and could not help but feel angry. Dead and alive, alive and dead? What are you trying to do? ZD's mood fluctuated violently with the double's life and death. Sometimes she was in heaven, sometimes she was in hell. However, the double's life and death were closely related to whether ZD could escape. ZD took a deep breath and checked the double's condition again. She immediately exhaled a turbid breath and felt slightly relieved. It turned out that the double did not die this time, but fell into a coma. Now, he can only rely on himself. I've done everything I can. ZD sighed. She had confidence in the double. It was very simple to build confidence. The double could even be revived after death, let alone now when he was just in a coma. Wait, while he's unconscious, I want to do a full check on him. This is the best time. If he survives and wakes up, I won't have a chance to do this. ZD knew that she had to learn more about the double. He was full of mysteries. How many alchemy methods did the war trafficker set up? ZD tried her best to take off the double's equipment and clothes that she could take off. When she took off his pants, ZD's movements suddenly froze. She suddenly realized, what was she doing? Before this, she had never taken the initiative to take off a young man's pants. I'm just doing research. I'm just doing this to survive. I have to do this. ZD, do your best. You can do it. No one knows what you've done. He's unconscious. Although she kept encouraging herself in her heart, ZD still delayed for more than 10 breaths before she continued to move. When she put on the double's pants again, her face was red like a ripe tomato. She felt that her whole body was burning. After a long time, she recovered and continued to move. She cleaned up the battlefield and disposed of the brown bear and the black panther's bodies. She also used the bear's blood to make game medicine and sprinkled it near the cave, pretending that the brown bear was still alive to deter other possible predators. She went deeper into the cave and found a dead end in the end. When she returned from another trip, she was pleasantly surprised to find that the double had already opened his eyes. You're awake. She was so excited that she took a few steps forward and almost threw herself into the double's arms. On one hand, she was really excited. On the other hand, she was also acting with her actions. Soon, she felt the double patting her shoulder and heard the double's voice become hoarse. I listened to you and didn't give up. Yes. ZD nodded and let go of Jinjin. She no longer hugged him tightly and stared at the youth with a pair of purple eyes, unblinking. For pairs of eyes, ZD thought, his pupils are also normal. Was the beast eyes that appeared before really just an illusion? While analyzing her heart, the girl said emotionally, Lord Jinjin, you are a real Knight Templar. It's all thanks to your medicine. ZD shook her head. The situation was urgent at the time, and the conditions for making the medicine were too simple. To be honest, I wasn't confident at the time. I just tried my best. I didn't think it would have such a miraculous effect. Maybe. The double smiled. What do you want to ask? Don't worry. ZD was very clear in her heart that there was a huge flaw in her plan. She could try to hide the fact that he had come back from the dead. However, the double's terrifying recovery ability was completely inconsistent with Jinjin's. She guessed that this was probably the work of the war traffickers, but the double didn't know about the war traffickers. If he had doubts in this regard, it was very likely that he would suspect her. Therefore, she had to use her words to solve this flaw in advance. Under ZD's deliberate guidance, the double's train of thought was seriously affected by her. Your guess is indeed possible, but I can't answer you, because my memory has only recovered a few short scenes. My lord, how does it feel to drink water? ZD looked concerned and nervous. Realizing that her guidance was successful, the clever ZD stopped while she was ahead and immediately changed the topic. There's no feeling of pain. It seems to be the same as usual. The double replied. That's good, but it still needs to be observed. ZD was very concerned about the double's condition. Now, she could only rely on him. The double needed to urinate to drink water. My lord, let me help you. ZD had been paying close attention to the double. She was very good at reading people's expressions. When she noticed that the young man was a little embarrassed, she understood. My lord, I'm your fiancé. There's no need to be embarrassed. ZD persuaded again, but in her heart, she said, I've already seen it. The volume is different. Is it because of holding back urine? ZD helped the double successfully urinate. 2 lovely red spots still rose on her cheeks. The hair on her forehead was slightly raised, as if her whole little head was steaming. My lord, it seems that your injuries are recovering very well. You can drink water without worry. However, you still need to be careful when eating. ZD was happy for the double's health. She observed the double's feces and collected them for analysis. My lord, your body is recovering very well. To be more precise, it's extremely amazing. This kind of physical quality is definitely not something that a silver rank can have. ZD stared at Jinjin, her pair of purple eyes emitting a scorching light. At this moment, she suddenly realized, even if her plan to obtain the war dealer's inheritance failed, the young man in front of her was the war dealer's proudest work when he was alive. If she studied him in depth, it was also possible to deduce the war dealer's alchemy results. Chapter 195. The substitute's injuries gradually healed. In further communication, ZD also described her identity. Wisteria Chamber of Commerce? That name sounds familiar. Wait, could it be? The substitute analyzed his situation and became closer to ZD. ZD observed his expression and became more vigilant. The substitute's analytical ability is much higher than Jinjin's. I only revealed a little about the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce, and he already thought so much. Looking at his expression, he also quite approves of this alliance of interests. This shows that he is also a pragmatic person. ZD felt the pressure. She was under much more pressure when she was with her double than when she was with needlework. The substitute also asked why there were no direct forces around him. ZD told him, there was indeed a group of people sent by the Lord's family, but they were attacked by bandits on the way and were completely wiped out. At the same time, there were traces of frequent goblins and ogres around the 100 Needles clan's territory. At this moment, the girl already knew that this was not a conspiracy of the competitors, but the war traffickers and the Sharp Diamond faction. But the substitute had been misled and could not help but snort. It seems that the competition for the position of the White Sand City Lord is very fierce. Lord, traveling with us was a temple priest named Scabsand. He is the examiner of this competition. He is probably still alive. If we can find him and bring him help, that would be the best. ZD told the substitute about Scab's existence. The substitute's injuries were healed. The two of them were ready to leave the cave and try to escape again. However, they were very surprised to find that the landscape had changed. Originally, it was a jungle landscape, but now it had become a forest landscape. To some extent, the vast nature was naturally more difficult to deal with than the fierce magic beasts. The substitute and ZD could only helplessly return to the cave. No matter how strong the substitute is, even if he can use Do Chi, it will not help us in our current predicament. ZD knew she had to stand up. The barbarian scroll has potions that can help me, but I lack a lot of herbs, and we can only use other herbs to replace them. Fortunately, I have a certain amount of medicinal herbs on hand. At the same time, the properties of the newly collected medicinal herbs are very close to the original formula. This is worth a try, and it must be tried. ZD worked hard for an entire night. On the second day, she saw that the bottom of the pit had completely dried up with the pink liquid. She could not help but feel excited. I did it. She crushed the powder into powder and wrapped it with leaves to make a pink potion. These powders can leave traces. The bright pink color will be very conspicuous in the forest. Whether it was sprinkled on a tree trunk or a rock, it would stay there for a long time. Even if it's washed away by heavy rain, it can still stubbornly remain for several days. With the help of the pink potion, the substitute and ZD no longer had to worry about getting lost in the forest. The two of them started trekking through the forest and encountered a black panther along the way. Hurry up and chase after it. It might attract the entire leopard pack, ZD reminded them in a low voice. Follow me. If not, before the body double could finish, ZD interrupted her. Don't worry, we both have the potion. We can mark it anywhere and meet up. ZD answered quickly. Although she would be safer with the substitute by her side, she was very rational. She knew that if she was surrounded by the leopard pack, she would definitely die a tragic death. After all, the substitute was only one person and could not protect her completely. Therefore, she would rather take a risk now and nip the potentially fatal danger in the bud. The substitute chased in front while the girl ran with all her strength, trying to shorten the distance between her and the substitute. The substitute was very fast and soon disappeared into the vast forest. ZD seemed to have become a lonely person again. It was fine when the substitute was by her side, but once the substitute was far away, she could not help but feel panic and loneliness. The countless branches and leaves in the forest seemed to have become evil existences, staring at her with terrifying malice. ZD's heart beat faster and faster. She found that she was so out of place in the forest. When she saw the substitute again, the feeling of terror and loneliness suddenly disappeared. Because of the running, her heart was beating very fast, but now she was completely relieved. It's really good to have a substitute. If I were to survive alone, I'm afraid that I would be crushed by this invisible pressure very quickly, right? The substitute communicated with ZD, and the news surprised her. A person called Huang Zhao was asking for help, but after thinking carefully, ZD replied to the substitute, "Sir, I suggest that you save him." Following that, ZD's analysis was organized and clear. Her objective was clear and reasonable. But to save him, we have to face at least a dozen bronze spiders. The substitute was in a difficult position. "Sir, I already have a way." ZD smiled and said, "Believe me, if the cost is greater than the reward, I will definitely not do this." "You're right, but you forgot the most important point," the substitute said. ZD quickly restrained her smile and lowered her head. "Please instruct me, sir. I am a holy knight, a knight among knights. Helping the weak and saving lives is my creed. Even in times of danger, I will not abandon my companions." The substitute's powerful words echoed in the quiet forest. For a moment, ZD looked at the youth and was stunned. If Zhenjin himself said this, ZD would definitely not believe it, and at the same time despise him. If the substitute had just woken up and said this, ZD would not believe it either. But a few days ago, ZD and the substitute experienced life and death together. ZD saw with her own eyes that the substitute stood up bravely to protect her against the poisonous fire bees. For her, He fought fiercely with the monkey-tail brown bear. In the cave, he struggled back and forth between life and death. Maybe what he said is true. He was originally a knight, and the spirit of chivalry is his creed. His simple memory also reinforced his good character. If that's the case, then he is worthy of my trust. Thinking of this, ZD smiled. Sir, I understand. Using combustion-promoting drugs and flame-retardant drugs, the substitute fought against the blade spiders, but found that Huang Zhao had deliberately concealed important information about the silver-level blade spiders. Huang Zhao regained his freedom. In a panic, he took ZD's dagger and ran away alone. Without the dagger to cut the spider web, the substitute fell into a desperate situation. ZD was bound to the ground by the spider web. She was furious and struggled with all her might. In desperation, ZD heard the substitute's angry roar. Her whole body was bound by the spider web, and she lay on the ground, unable to move. She could only desperately raise her head, and then she saw the substitute's hands mutate into the claws of a monkey-tail brown bear. And when the blade spider was caught off guard, it killed it. It's a beast. He's a beast. ZD was surprised and happy. She was not surprised at all. The substitute was originally a beast transformed by the war trafficker. The next moment, the bare claws of the substitute turned into ashes and scattered, returning to the state of a human hand. ZD could not help but widen her eyes. This kind of beast can be restored? It's not a one-time beast transformation. No wonder the war trafficker said that the substitute was his proudest work in his life. I'm saved. Knowing that she was out of danger, ZD suddenly relaxed. But immediately, her gaze became serious. This is not good. She suddenly remembered that the substitute's memories were artificial, and the beast transformation was a huge flaw. It was extremely conflicting with his memories and identity. ZD was more worried that this kind of beast transformation would stimulate his original memories and make him realize that he had been deceived. ZD quickly lay down. Since the situation was unclear, she decided to pretend that she didn't know anything. After killing the silver spider leader, the substitute's body suddenly shook violently. Weakness, an indescribable feeling of weakness, reached the bottom of his heart. This was not only a lack of physical strength, nor was it a mental exhaustion. It felt as if a part of his body had suddenly been hollowed out. Sir, the Lord Junjin. ZD's call seemed to come from the horizon, becoming clearer and louder. Under the urging of the voice, the stand-in finally reacted to the situation. He quickly turned around and rescued ZD, allowing her to regain her freedom. Sir, you've awakened your Do Chi? ZD pretended to be pleasantly surprised. No, I used the tip of the spear to pierce through the spiderweb. The substitute's mind was in a mess. He mistakenly thought that ZD did not see it, so he did not think much and subconsciously hid the secret of the beast transformation. ZD's heart sank. He hid it from me. Did he discover the truth? No, don't panic. Maybe he did not discover the flaw and found it difficult to accept the fact that his body would change. I still have to continue pretending that I don't know. If I rashly tell him the truth, it will stimulate him and he might do something malicious. That hateful yellow algae ran away. We must find him and teach him a lesson. ZD said fiercely and immediately changed the topic. Wait, this is good stuff. You must not lose it. ZD looked at the silver spider's corpse again. The substitute's beast, transformation, and concealment made her feel a sense of crisis. She had to seize every opportunity to strengthen herself. On one hand, she needed to rely on the substitute to protect herself against the dangerous environment of Confusion Island. On the other hand, she also needed to be wary of the substitute. Maybe the substitute's bestial nature would erupt and pounce on her in the next moment. The substitute was full of doubts when he discovered his own change. Along the way, he often showed a conflicted and confused expression. ZD saw all this. In this situation, the substitute does not know my feelings. If he confesses this secret to me and asks for my help, it will be in my best interest. Because since he confessed to me, it means that he still trusts me and has not discovered the truth. If he continues to hide it, there are basically two situations. One is that he has not discovered the flaw and is only in the stage of self-doubt. The other is that he has already begun to doubt me and his identity. ZD followed behind the substitute and observed his expression. The substitute had a lot on his mind, and she was also under a lot of pressure. Fortunately, ZD didn't notice that the substitute was secretly probing her or trying to pry for any information. This made her feel slightly relieved. "Sir, look, there are traces of yellow algae here." Soon, ZD made a pleasantly surprised discovery. While drawing water, ZD and the substitute were surrounded by Lan Zhao, Song Su, and the others. ZD's attitude was unyielding. "It's you. We finally caught you, yellow algae." In addition to the pressure in her heart, there was also joy. It's too dangerous to stay by the substitute's side alone. These people came at a good time. I need some people to accompany me. This way, even if the substitute finds a flaw and wants to attack me, he will have another layer of scruples. Chapter 196. With a plop, Huang Zhao suddenly knelt on the ground, his forehead fiercely hitting the ground. He took the initiative to beg for mercy. "Sirs, I am Huang Zhao. I fled at the last moment. I was wrong. I committed an unforgivable crime. This lowly one will not resist. If you want to kill me, I will leave it to the two sirs." Afterwards, Lan Zhao also knelt on the ground and begged for the substitute's forgiveness. Song Su also defended him. ZD glanced at the two brothers kneeling on the ground and could not help but sneer. This lowly and cowardly villain, deceiving Lord Jinjin, concealing the existence of silver magical beasts for his own selfish reasons. Then he fled at the last moment, putting the noble bloodline in danger, repaying kindness with enmity. "Scholar, are you advising us to be lenient with such people?" On the surface, she said this, but her heart was full of joy. This situation was better than she had expected. She had thought that she would need to fight to make them submit. Song Su fought for leniency for the brothers Lan Zhao and Huang Zhao. Lan Zhao and Huang Zhao were willing to be slaves. "Sirs," ZD looked at Jinjin with the attitude of a subordinate waiting for the latter to make a decision. She was a little worried that the substitute would let his emotions affect his decisions. In the end, the substitute said, "Do not overestimate people, but also do not underestimate them. This is the family motto of my 100 Needles clan. Therefore, Huang Zhao, Lan Zhao, I am willing to give you two a chance. I hope that you can use your loyalty and practical actions to change my view of you. The glory of the holy temple shrouds every inch of land. The empire's military flag protects every citizen of the empire. Follow me. I will lead you out of here alive." ZD breathed a sigh of relief. The substitute did not let his emotions affect his decisions. He focused on practical benefits and had the demeanor of a noble. Especially the last sentence, "It really is like a holy night." Everyone knelt on the ground, acknowledging the substitute's leadership. Although it is fake, the substitute has the dual identity of a holy knight and a noble, easily becoming the leader. If it were me, it would be impossible for me to achieve this in such a short time. Sigh, if I really want to do this, the time, energy, and price I have to pay will far exceed that of substitute. ZD sighed. As the team rested, the stand-in summoned Song Su alone. I wonder how the stand-in's leadership skills are. According to the intelligence and personal observation, Zhanjin's leadership ability is worrying. No, I have to help him more. ZD couldn't stay idle. She quickly made initial contact with each member. As a businesswoman, she was very good at socializing. Soon, she restored the entire truth. This Song Su is not simple. ZD reminded her stand-in when they were alone. You can't overestimate others, but you can't underestimate them either. The substitute sighed and then told ZD, regarding my incomplete memory and inability to use battle energy, you have to keep it a secret for the time being. ZD nodded repeatedly, her face slightly solemn. I understand, sir. She was about to remind the substitute of this matter. She didn't want this secret to be exposed. Sang-Soo's appearance made ZD vigilant. This old scholar was definitely a smart person. The substitute's rationality and alertness had already made ZD feel pressured. If people like Sang-Soo knew more, it would do ZD no good. You arrange for the members of the exploration team to come in one by one. I will talk to them alone in the tent. The stand-in finally ordered ZD. This action made the girl slightly stunned. Then, she asked Baya and the others about the stand-in's promise. As long as they performed well, they might be able to follow him in the future and join Baisha City. At the very least, they could become guards of Baisha City. ZD was a little impressed by the stand-in. It seems that although he has lost all his memory, he still has a certain level of leadership ability. My previous worries were a little unnecessary. Could it be because of his original identity? ZD began to be curious about the stand-in's original identity, because she knew that if it was Zhun Jin, there was a high probability that he wouldn't do this. Zhun Jin's attitude towards these civilians was quite arrogant. He wouldn't lower himself to meet and talk to everyone. He would probably think that these people were lucky to be able to follow him. In the tent, the stand-in, ZD, Sang-Soo, and the others began to discuss the next course of action. Everyone combined the maps in their hands, and the stand-in said, "We are now here. Our goal is to return here." No one objected to the proposal to join the main force. ZD sighed inwardly. She still couldn't forget the war dealer's legacy. Previously, there was only her and the stand-in, but now that they had subdued such a group of people, ZD once again had a desire for the legacy. Sang-Soo began to talk about his speculation. He mentioned a shocking conjecture. The magical beasts on this island were man-made. The stand-in was surprised because it was the first time he had heard this. ZD was also surprised. She looked at the old scholar in front of her and was even more wary of him. How on earth did he know this secret? Sang-Soo slowly explained, "Since entering the island, I have dissected many magical beasts. I found that although they have a stable cycle of their own and their organs work closely together as if they were born this way, when I really looked into it, they are actually unnatural." ZD frowned slightly, pondering Sang-Soo's words. Unnatural? Sang-Soo's following explanation gradually made everyone accept his conjecture. ZD sighed in relief. Sang-Soo didn't know, and was just speculating based on his rich knowledge. This old scholar is very good. He's not an ordinary noble steward. ZD evaluated in her heart. Lan Zhao couldn't help but ask, "Then who can create so many magical beasts? Which big shot in the Empire is it? Could it be a god? Only a god has the power to create things, right?" ZD's heart skipped a beat. Thanks to Sang-Soo's speculation, everyone had a deeper understanding of the island. ZD wouldn't take the initiative to explain, because it would arouse suspicion. Sang-Soo was an unexpected person, but at this point, can I push the boat with the current? I can give these people pointers and influence them to look for the alchemy factory. As long as they don't doubt me, any attempt should be worth it. So she said, "It's also possible for a mage. As far as I know, a legendary mage can transform and operate a half-plane. Isn't this imitating the creation of the gods?" Sang-Soo guessed again. "I think that the teleportation mechanism that seems to be changing the landscape is probably one of the measures taken by the owner of this island to maintain the ecology of the island." ZD looked at Sang-Soo and gave everyone pointers again. If these beasts are also teleported, then perhaps the owner of this island wants them to fight and choose the strongest monster. Just like the alchemy puppet competition held by the Alchemy Guild, is it to cultivate the strongest life weapon? Sang-Soo smiled. Lady ZD's analysis is very reasonable, and there is indeed such a possibility. But I still insist that the possibility of maintaining the ecology is greater. Sang-Soo's words were reasonable, and ZD also felt that it was very reasonable. Perhaps the purpose of this teleportation mechanism is both. The girl spoke again. So, the owner of this island deliberately created jungles, mountains, deserts, snowy peaks, and other landforms to restrain these created beasts, stabilize the ecology of the island, and maintain the balance of nature. But why do I feel that he wants to select a monster that can adapt to all environments and has the strongest strength? If one associates it with the beastmen and life alchemy, perhaps one can guess that the owner of this island is a warmonger. Song Su continued with his conjecture. The chaotic magic is extremely unstable, and sometimes it will cause explosions. In this environment, the prohibition of low-level magic and combat energy also protects these beasts, maintains their stability, and allows them to live forever. ZD couldn't help but look at Song Su in a new light again. She had long guessed this secret, but she didn't expect that an outsider like Song Su would also investigate so deeply. And all this old scholar was only able to do this with the help of his own knowledge and wisdom. Seeing that no one had the intention to find a central hub, ZD finally couldn't help but say, if Mr. Song Su's conjecture is true, then whether it is this island or the various beasts, they are all modified objects. Then on this island, there must be a central hub. What do you think will happen if we find this central hub? Lan Zhao quickly said, that's too dangerous, isn't it? To be able to modify the entire island and create so many beasts, we can't fight against it at all. He's simply courting death. ZD smiled and shook her head slightly. Actually, that's not the case. Everyone, think carefully. According to our previous analysis, there are two possibilities. The first possibility is that the owner of the island is out and not on the island. This is the best time for us to attack the central hub. The second possibility is that the owner of the island has always been there, but he didn't make a move. He is monitoring us, playing with us, or doesn't care about us. However, once we successfully escape from this island, he will definitely make a move to kill us in order to keep his secret. So, rather than this, it's better to attack the central hub. Once the central hub is destroyed, we can stop the transmission and return the island's environment to normal. We can use magic and combat energy, and those beasts will collapse because of it. This is extremely beneficial for us to escape. Lan Zhao was speechless. Thinking about it this way, it seemed to make sense. ZD looked at the substitute again, her eyes shining brightly. Lord Jinjin, we are going to the Orc continent and strive to take control of White Sand City. If we can obtain this magic technology, we can create silver and gold-level beasts in batches. Even if these beasts can only last for a short time, they will self-destruct. How much do you think this will benefit us? In an instant, the substitute felt a rush of excitement. My lord, Song Su said slowly, I don't agree with Lady ZD's suggestion. Song Su mentioned 4 aspects. His logic was clear and organized, and these words completely moved the substitute. The substitute thought for a moment, then nodded. Your analysis is very good. The central hub is too elusive, and the risk is too great. We are not strong enough, so our first goal is to join the main force and create a ship to escape from this island as soon as possible. Damn it! ZD secretly clenched her fists. She was very unwilling. Am I really going to miss out on the war dealer's legacy? That is the legacy of an alchemy grandmaster. If I get it, my life and my fate will be turned upside down. ZD was helpless. She could not tell the truth. If he were to reveal the truth, he might draw fire to himself and destroy himself. The decision was made, but they were not in a hurry to set off. This was because Song Su suggested hunting sheep to obtain a large amount of food. This suggestion was also approved by ZD. Food was very important, and at the same time, the difficulty of this mission was very low. It would be easy to strengthen the substitute's prestige. However, the development of the matter was beyond everyone's expectations. Everyone was poisoned because of eating lamb. The group almost collapsed on the ground. The symptoms of the poisoning were similar to cold poison, but it was not. ZD vaguely thought of something, but she could not really grasp the flash of inspiration in her mind. I don't have much time. In a hurry, ZD quickly made a choice. Sir, red-white mushroom bottle cap. ZD used a stiff finger to point to the small leather bag at her waist. ZD reluctantly opened her mouth, and Jinjin began to pour the thick red medicine in the bottle. When the medicine entered her mouth, ZD's heart suddenly trembled. She grasped the inspiration. Wait, maybe it is that possibility? It was too late. In the next moment, her eyes rolled back and she completely fainted. Fortunately, Sang-soo reminded the substitute before she fainted. The group hurriedly rushed back to the location where they hunted the sheep. Everyone recovered, but they also fell into a panic. Their morale plummeted. The substitute stood up to stabilize the morale and told everyone, "Things are far from out of control. Don't forget, we still have Miss ZD. She is not only a magician, but also an extraordinary pharmacist." The substitute seemed to have forgotten that ZD had just drunk the medicine and fainted on the spot. However, there were many people who saw this scene at that time. On the way back, people who knew about this spread the news. Could she really do it? The substitute guaranteed, "We didn't know the cause of the poisoning before, so it is normal to make mistakes in diagnosis and treatment. The use of medicine has always been particular about the right medicine. Now that we know the cause, it is a completely different matter. How can a mere flock of sheep trap our hands and feet? Everyone, I still have to lead you away from this island. It is too early to give up now." ZD's heart was moved. She made a mistake. She did not detect the poison in the sheep. When she detoxified the poison, she also made a mistake. But in this case, the substitute still trusted her. This feeling of being trusted was really good. And the substitute, who calmed the people and cleaned up the situation, was like the rising sun at dawn. The sun was not dazzling, but it brought people hope. It was also like the flag fluttering in the wind at the top of a white castle under the blue sky. As long as one saw such a flag, they would inevitably be attracted and led by it. This made ZD feel reliable again. His leadership ability is much better than Jin's. Gathering in the tent, the higher-ups were distressed about the poisoning. ZD had already grasped the inspiration in her mind. She used the medicine on the spot to conduct an experiment and refined many small particles. She carefully examined these small particles, and her eyes lit up. "Everyone, I think I've found the real cause. The poisoning was only a superficial phenomenon. The real cause was the frost magic hidden in the sheep meat. The latter was very restrained at low temperatures. When everyone ate the sheep meat, they were eroded by this magic. Fortune and disaster came hand in hand. This kind of sheep meat was a very valuable commodity." The purple-eyed girl looked at the substitute with bright eyes. "Lord Jinjin, if we develop and control this business, it will undoubtedly be of great help to you. Whether it is competing for the position of Lord of White Sand City or becoming the Lord of White Sand City, you will need a lot of money. And this business is like putting a pair of wings on your back. It may even bring us the support of the top nobles." ZD secretly sighed. This is only a very small part of the warlord's legacy, and its value is already so high. It is hard to imagine how great the benefits of the complete legacy would be. Although they had found the cause, to solve this problem, ZD still had to rely on herself. The others, including the substitute and Sang-soo, could not help. ZD locked herself in the tent and faced this challenge alone. "ZD, you can do it. Do your best." The purple-eyed girl took a deep breath and began to try. After failing again and again, ZD was soon covered in sweat. Failure kept appearing, and success was not in sight. The pressure in her heart was increasing. If they could not solve this problem, they would be trapped here forever. Whether it was meeting with the main force or going to the alchemy factory, it would be an extravagant hope. "You must do it. Father's Revenge and the Purple Vine Chamber of Commerce. ZD, you must solve this problem." ZD gritted her teeth and persisted. After struggling alone until late at night, ZD's hand that was reaching for the bag at her waist suddenly stopped. There are no more herbs. She seemed to have stepped on air and fell from the cliff into the abyss. For a while, she was like a stone statue, frozen in place. This kind of herb was very important. If it was used up, it would be a complete failure. Despair and depression were like a tsunami, drowning ZD's heart. She staggered and almost fell to the ground, almost crying out loud. "Calm down, calm down." She persuaded herself in her heart, but tears silently flowed down. She knew that panic could not help her, so she began to take deep breaths. But deep breaths did not work. Her thoughts were in a mess, and it was difficult to think. At this time, she smelled the smell of the medicine on the substitute. Earlier on the dock, she had secretly sprinkled some kind of scent medicine on the substitute for insurance. This smell could only be smelled by ZD, who had taken the corresponding medicine. Smelling this smell, ZD's heart slowly calmed down. She knew that when she was struggling alone, the substitute had been standing outside her tent, guarding her. All of a sudden, she felt that she wasn't alone. In this desperate situation, there was still one person who faced it with her, who fought together with her. He is using his own way to help me, with all his strength. He is protecting me. He still thinks that I don't know, although he is not a real knight, although he may cause trouble for me in the future, but at this moment, it's good to have you by my side. ZD's mood completely calmed down, and she quietly wiped the tears on her cheeks. There is still hope. Although the key herbs have been used up, I can try to replace them with other herbs. This was precious knowledge from the barbarian's leather scroll. ZD was not sure. She had no experience in this area, but Zhun Jin's existence gave her the courage to try. Failure again and again. Failure, failure, failure. Continuous failure. ZD did not know how many times she had failed. She was already numb to the results of failure. So much so that when success came, she still subconsciously tried again. The next moment, ZD covered her mouth, looked at the liquid in the bottle, and tears fell again. She collected her emotions, tidied up her appearance, and sniffed softly. The substitute was still there. Outside the tent, the sun illuminated the east, and the morning glow filled the sky. ZD called, "Lord Jinjin, are you still there?" "Yes." Jinjin immediately replied. "Then please come in." As soon as he entered the tent, all kinds of strange smells became stronger and rushed into the substitute's nose. And the smell that originated from him was caught by ZD. ZD looked at the substitute and raised the glass bottle in her hand. "Fortunately, I did not disappoint you." There was a blue liquid in the bottle, like seawater. The surface was calm, but there was a turbulent undercurrent in the depths. Chapter 197. The potion had been made, but the actual effects still needed to be tested in practice. After Lan Zhao swallowed the potion, his entire face immediately turned blue. At the same time, he grabbed his neck with both hands, opened his mouth, widened his eyes, and vomited. But the uncomfortable thing was that he could not vomit anything. "Brother!" Huang Zhao shouted in shock. The others were also a little surprised. "Don't worry. This is a normal reaction." ZD comforted everyone. Not long after, the substitute also took the potion. The substitute spat out a large mouthful of blood. The blood was red and blue, and there were a few thumb-sized ice cubes in it. These ice cubes emitted a strong, cold air, showing a strange blue-purple color. But at this moment, Zhun Jin's expression changed. ZD's heart suddenly jumped, and she hurriedly walked forward with concern. "Is there something wrong?" "Nothing." The substitute shook his head. "He seems to be hiding something from me. Does my potion have some side effects on work creatures?" ZD was worried. It was not that she did not consider the substitute's physique as a work creature, but the key was that she could not guess the methods used by the war traffickers to create work creatures. The war traffickers were the pinnacle of alchemy in the world, and ZD was only a small black iron mage. In addition, ZD was also worried about something. That was the grass. This discovery was a byproduct of the development of the potion. It turned out that the goat was also a victim, and the real wealth was the grass that grew here. When I was developing the potion, I used a lot of grass. This fact is very difficult to hide. Maybe I can deceive others, but Song Su must have guessed. An old scholar like him probably already knows the truth. "Sai, what should I do?" The feeling of taking the potion made the substitute suspicious, and he even suspected that he could shape-shift because ZD inadvertently made a transformation potion when she saved him. That night, when the substitute fell into a dream, he once again received a scene of Zhun Jin's memory. In the morning, he excitedly found ZD and whispered to her, "There's good news. I've recovered some of my memories." I feel that my combat strength will increase a lot because of this. A happy smile appeared on ZD's face. My lord, the situation will get better and better. You're right. I have to give a try. I'll take my leave first. The substitute bade farewell and left excitedly. Watching him lift the curtain and leave, the smile on ZD's face quickly disappeared. The substitute's action showed that he did not suspect ZD. However, other than making the young girl relax, this trust also added many complicated emotions to her. This memory is fake. I lied to him before he saw through the truth. He trusted me so much. He did everything he could to protect me and accompany me. If he discovers the truth one day, how should I face him? Stop. ZD, what are you thinking? He's just a substitute. It was just a tool. In the past, your life might have been tied to his, but now that he's dead, the contract is no longer valid. If he discovers this secret in the future, then execute him. Remember, ZD, you have to be rational. You have to think about the big picture. ZD had thought about her situation and had a very clear plan. In her opinion, the best result of her trip was to obtain the inheritance of the war dealer. But she had tried and failed. The team was focused on escaping from the Confusion Island. It would be impossible for her to successfully find the central hub and sneak into the alchemy factory by herself. Her current failure did not mean that she would not have a chance in the future. If it really did not work, and they left the Confusion Island, ZD still planned to compete with Zhenjin for the position of the mayor of White Sand City. Zhenjin is still in the dark. He doesn't know what happened to me. When the shipwreck happened, he was not affected by the environment of the Confusion Island. He could still use magic and Do Chi. Zhenjin is likely to have survived. It's very likely that he's in the main group. If he's unfortunately killed, I'll be in big trouble. ZD had previously signed a marriage contract with Zhenjin. This magical contract bound both parties to not have any malicious intentions towards each other. However, this contract had been tampered with by the war dealer, changing it into a life contract between ZD and the substitute. After the war dealer died, the contract became invalid. If Zhenjin died in the shipwreck and ZD was still alive, she would definitely be suspected by the Hundred Needles family, investigated, and even punished. Even if she used the substitute to deceive them for a while, it was not a long-term solution. ZD had been confident before because the war dealer would help the substitute in disguise. Now that the main force was gone, it would be very difficult to deceive the Empire's investigation with the substitute's identity as a war creature. Last night in the tent, ZD had faced a desperate situation. The substitute had silently guarded outside the tent and comforted her and encouraged her. But at dawn, after the medicine had taken effect, ZD had completely calmed down. The blood of a merchant flowed in her bones. Her father was able to create a business miracle like the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. Whether it was her talent or her nurture, ZD was very good at calculating and making choices for benefits. She had indeed been moved by the substitute's protection at a certain moment last night. But being moved was not a substitute for reality. The new memories allowed the substitute to master excellent long-range attacks. The substitute tried to recruit Song Su, even revealing the secret of the green grass. In the end, it failed, but the substitute did not return empty-handed. For his own freedom, Song Su was willing to contribute the training method of the explosive hooves savage horse cavalry to the substitute. Song Su also advised the substitute, reminding him that the team was facing a shortage of food. In order to solve this problem, the substitute discussed with Song Su and went to ZD's tent alone. ZD had already rested. The workload of concocting medicine for the entire team was too much. The process was also very troublesome, and she was exhausted. The substitute paced outside the tent. Although the problem was serious, the substitute did not want to disturb ZD. Let her have a good rest. While the substitute was thinking, ZD, who was sleeping soundly in the dim tent, gently twitched her nose and smelled the substitute's scent. Then she slowly opened her eyes. "Is it my lord?" ZD's voice came from the tent. The substitute was about to turn and leave when he heard the voice. He immediately turned around. "It's me. There are some things I need to discuss with you." The substitute told ZD about his failure to recruit Song-Soo. ZD felt that Song-Soo was not simple. As for the substitute's idea of using medicine to detoxify the mutton and turn it into food, ZD admitted that she had no way to do it. She was able to succeed because of a lot of luck. The most important medicinal materials had been used up and could not be replenished. ZD could only comfort the substitute. Perhaps she could find some supplies in the previously established camp. The substitute's disappointed expression was obvious. ZD was also very disappointed. Reality seemed to be reminding her that they could not even solve the food problem. The team was still in danger and could not even protect themselves. How could they talk about finding the central hub? Before leaving, the substitute's face flashed with a hint of hesitation. But in the end, he turned around and asked, "ZD, do you still have the blood of the brown monkey bear?" ZD handed the medicine bottle containing the bear's blood to the substitute. It seems that the substitute has always suspected that his beastification was due to the transformation medicine. But in fact, this is his ability after being transformed by the war traffickers. I really hope that he can tell me this secret and ask for my help. If the substitute did so, it meant that he trusted ZD very much. The scouts found a group of flying squirrels. After careful consideration, the substitute decided to train archers to eliminate the flying squirrels and solve the food shortage crisis. The entire team is once again in a life and death situation. There will only be hope if we win. The substitute's prestige will increase greatly. If the team can survive, we might even be able to find the central hub in the future. ZD was so focused that she forgot to eat and sleep. She shut herself in the tent and almost never went out. After a few days, she finally developed the medicine. This medicine could deceive the flying squirrel's sense of smell. She handed the medicine to the substitute. The substitute was very surprised and excitedly hugged ZD. ZD's body stiffened. She had never been hugged so tightly by a man. Her originally clear and rational mind seemed to be melted by the rich and charming aura of the substitute. Then, she heard the substitute praise, "ZD, my fiancé, you always surprise me. Thank you for your support." It was not until the substitute left that ZD's thoughts gradually recovered. "You've always been supporting me." She looked at the back of the substitute and responded in her heart. When she was alone in the tent, ZD calmed down again. She reached out and patted her still hot cheeks, reminding herself again, "Wake up, ZD. He's just a substitute. He hid the secret of his shape-shifting from you. If he knows the truth in the future, how will he treat you?" The substitute's steady and persistent performance made ZD have a whole new level of respect for him. He's clearly half a step in the air and about to fall off the cliff, but he's still able to keep his composure. I definitely can't do that. Although the battle to hunt the flying squirrels was thrilling and there were many twists and turns, the human team achieved a complete victory in the end. The substitute's performance was outstanding, especially at the end. His arm became thicker, and he threw the dagger with great strength, killing the black iron-ranked flying squirrel leader in one blow. His style was awe-inspiring. ZD secretly admired the battle dealer's alchemy skills. She guessed, could it be that the substitute can control his own body and completely control the shape-shifting of his body parts? I was a little puzzled before. The substitute's shape-shifting ability conflicted with his disguise mission. But now it seems that this partial shape-shifting ability can be hidden very well. Especially when combined with fighting energy, it's very difficult to be detected. This great victory greatly increased the stand-in's prestige. Many people publicly expressed their desire to follow Junjin after the battle. The substitute became even more suspicious because of the second shape-shifting. That night, he summoned ZD and asked her about the situation in a roundabout way. "Did something happen? Or do you think there's some hidden danger?" ZD asked. She really hoped that the substitute could reveal the secret of his shape-shifting ability. But to her disappointment, the substitute's answer was only, "Nothing. I just want to understand. It's getting late. We have to set off tomorrow." Go back and have a good rest." The teleportation took everyone by surprise. The sandstorm was like the Grim Reaper's scythe, wanting to reap the lives of the entire team. At the critical moment, ZD immediately used medicine to melt a large hole in the sand, quickly creating a basement. "Substitute, where are you?" ZD sprinkled medicine again, and white flames ignited in the violent sandstorm of the night. The white flames were like a mark, attracting many people around them. But to ZD's disappointment, she did not see the substitute. "Quickly hide in there. Lord Jinjin will definitely come." "Miss ZD, your position is too dangerous. Quickly hide in the basement." Everyone persuaded her, and ZD could not hold on, so she could only retreat for the time being. Good times did not last long. The temporary melted hole was very unstable and soon collapsed. Fortunately, ZD still had plenty of medicine and began to melt again in an attempt to expand the space. Suddenly, there was nothing under their feet, and they fell deeper. "There's actually a natural hole here. We're saved." Everyone kept taking deep breaths, as the lack of oxygen was very serious. Song-Su's expression was heavy. "This hole is not natural, but a passage for wild beasts. The reason why there's air is probably because this passage leads directly to the surface." The many beast marks in the hole were quite obvious. Everyone's expression was stern. After resting for a while, the group carefully began to explore. They found green-skinned lizards. Song-Su and the others were not unfamiliar with these beasts. They had encountered them when they were in the desert. After eliminating a few green-skinned lizards along the way, the group unexpectedly came to a unique hole. After identifying it, they found that this was the lizard's nursery, and a large number of lizard eggs were stored inside. In addition, there were several female lizards guarding the eggs and incubating them at the same time. A fierce battle unfolded, and ZD kept throwing out medicine, finally helping her companions win. They eliminated all the female lizards, but the situation was even more dangerous because the battle attracted an endless stream of strong lizards. These lizards kept attacking the nursery, and the humans could only rely on the narrow hole in the nursery to hold on. ZD did not have enough medicine to melt another passage. Song-Su even deduced that this lizard community was very large through dissection and other things. Without treatment, no matter how long they held on, they would eventually die. ZD was very unwilling. Clearly, the team had eliminated the pterosaur group, solved the food crisis, and the substitute's authority had been strengthened. After one night, they had fallen into such a desperate situation. She opened her mouth to boost everyone's morale, but the effect was not very good. She had an idea and sprinkled pink medicine on the lizards. These injured lizards retreat. As long as they return to the ground and are seen by others, we might be able to get reinforcements. This method finally gave everyone some hope and stabilized their morale. ZD, you can't give up yet. There's still a chance. ZD encouraged herself as she actively looked for other ways out. After trying, she found that these lizard eggs were very good medicinal materials. She used these medicinal materials to concoct acid mist medicine that even the lizards could not withstand. Song-Su speculated that these green-skinned lizards would go out to look for food in the morning. ZD used these medicines to help everyone break out of the encirclement. After a thrilling escape, they returned to the ground. However, they did not expect that the lizards that went out to hunt for food would be attacked by the scorpions and return to their nest early. ZD and the others were surrounded and could only retreat to the top of a sand dune. Relying on the acid mist medicine, everyone could barely hold on. The lizards surrounded them and waited for ZD's medicine to run out. Everyone was in despair, and ZD was the same. However, Baya said, "The Lord Jinjin will definitely appear and save us in time to lead us out of here, just because he is a Templar Knight." ZD smiled bitterly in her heart. Ever since the sandstorm, she had especially missed the substitute. Now, she could not smell any scent on the substitute. It was very likely that the substitute had died in the sandstorm. And Baya's naive thoughts reminded her of a fairy tale when she was young. The fairy tale of a princess, a demon, and a knight. The demon captured the princess and forced her to marry him. But the little princess shook her head. I don't want to marry you, you bad demon. My father and mother will send a knight to save me. ZD had long stopped believing in such a fairy tale. The cruel reality made her secretly admire the little princess' courage and determination. Although she was in a predicament, she always maintained hope that a knight would come to save her. A fairy tale is just a fairy tale. I'm afraid this will be my burial ground. Even now, I don't know where the central hub is. Damn it, revenge for my father and the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce. However, right at this moment, ZD heard someone shout, "Quick, come and take a look. Is there a person over there?" This shout immediately attracted everyone's attention. There's a person. Who is it? I can't see clearly. He's running towards us. ZD was stunned and also began to look. Sangsu narrowed his eyes. There are green lizards at the foot of the sand dune, but this person is still rushing over. He's obviously a bold person. It's the Lord Jinjin, it must be him. Bai shouted excitedly. As the distance closed, everyone could finally recognize the person's face. Immediately, cheers rang out. It's my lord. It really is the Lord Jinjin. In an instant, ZD's heart raced. A strong emotion almost burst out of her eyes and turned into tears of excitement. She remembered her mother's words. My little princess, don't worry. You will have your knight. He will protect you for the rest of your life. My knight? The eyes of the childhood ZD shone. Where's he? Mother is not too sure, but what is certain is that he will definitely appear in your life. Now, he appeared. Chapter 198. Ah, he's injured. ZD's heart clenched. The substitute held the spider blade in his hand and rushed into the midst of the lizards, slashing left and right. It seems that the injuries on the Lord's body have a great impact on him. The Lord is constantly dodging. Could it be that he can't use his fighting spirit to protect his body? As long as he's hit by this acid, Lord Jinjin will be in danger. He's injured, but he still risked his life to rush over to save us. This is a holy night. Lord Jinjin, just as he said, he hasn't given up on us. The substitute rushed into the group of lizards and was besieged. There was no lack of black iron and bronze magical beasts among them. Seeing that the substitute was heavily surrounded and in danger, everyone at the top of the sand dune was scared witless. No, this can't go on. I have to think of a way. How can I help him? Now that we're trapped on the dune, we can only use arrows to complement the potion. That's right, the anti-rot potion I made. According to the substitute's physical fitness, he will definitely be able to use it. Thinking of this, ZD immediately took out the potion, poured it into the arrow shaft, and then put the arrowhead back. Then, ZD chose Bai to attack. Bai shot with all his strength, but the arrow was still more than 10 steps away from the substitute. Quick! Shout together to remind the Lord Jinjin. ZD commanded again. Hearing everyone's shouts, the substitute pulled out the arrow and drank the potion. Now, shoot these arrows. ZD took out 5 or 6 arrows from the small leather bag at her waist. After Bai shot the arrow, the thick green smoke slowly sank along with the arrow's trajectory in the air, forming a temporary smoke wall. Following the temporary smoke wall, the substitute successfully broke through the encirclement, climbed up the dune, and met up with everyone. The moment the substitute reached the top, ZD's heart surged with an urge to throw herself into his embrace. But the next moment, the exploration team members crowded over and surrounded Jinjin, all of them excited. Lord Jinjin! ZD calmed down and was secretly surprised. What's wrong with me? She had never had such a bold idea since she was young. The return of the substitute greatly boosted the morale of the exploration team. Then, the scorpion horde that he deliberately attracted was a pleasant surprise to everyone. With the help of the chaos created by the scorpions, the substitute led everyone down the sand dune. The doppelganger swung the spider blade in its hand, killing the lizards that blocked its way. ZD, who had been charging at the front, bore the greatest pressure. She was mixed in with the team, and when she looked at the stand-in at the front, she could not help but be attracted to him. The breakthrough was successful, but Baya fell into the lizard's encirclement. Just as the substitute was about to turn around to save him, Song Su shouted in a low voice, "Sir, don't worry about him. If we don't leave now, these lizards will surround us again." These were also ZD's heartfelt words. She did not want her substitute to be in danger again. However, for some reason, ZD did not open her mouth to persuade him. Faced with a choice, the substitute was resolute and decisive. "I've said it before, I won't abandon anyone. Baya will be no exception." Seeing the substitute rush back without hesitation, ZD had a very complicated feeling in her heart. She was worried about the substitute, but at the same time, she was happy. The substitute brought Baya back. Everything was as romantic as a story. The substitute had said that he would not give up on anyone. He had fulfilled his promise. Nothing was more convincing than actual actions. At this moment, ZD had a realization. He has indeed been transformed by the war traffickers. He has become a word beast. However, he is still a knight, a real knight. After escaping the encirclement of the lizards, the exploration team was quickly chased by the scorpion horde. Every time, the substitute stepped forward and fought fiercely with the leader of the scorpion horde to support the situation. Relying on your own recovery ability, you can heal yourself. But now, we can't get rid of the scorpion horde. Sir, you can only continuously fight with the leader of the scorpion horde and constantly squeeze out the energy and stamina in your body. Every fierce battle pulls on your wounds. There's no rest at all and no time to recover. ZD healed the substitute's injuries and felt her heart ache. It was the substitute who was fighting with all his might, using his life to protect everyone and her. ZD realized that she had become a burden to the substitute. According to the substitute's strength, he could completely abandon everyone and escape alone. This can't go on. His physical condition is getting worse and worse. ZD gradually despaired. She could not think of any way to change the situation. After watching the substitute fight with the leader of the scorpion horde time and time again, and healing him time and time again, ZD no longer treated the substitute as a tool. Instead, she began to feel guilty. He's a real knight, but I've been using him, ZD said to herself in her heart. I shouldn't have lied to him. If I die like this, I have to tell him the truth before I die. Although he was the most difficult person in the team, the substitute still continued to encourage the others. As long as we're still alive, there's a lot of hope. As long as we maintain hope at all times and don't give up, then before death really comes, there's still hope and possibility of survival. Only hoping for external help and change is not the behavior of a brave person. What's more reliable is that we save ourselves. ZD quietly looked at him. He's the center of everyone. Without him, the whole team would have collapsed long ago. He's an excellent leader. The substitute asked Song Su for advice. Perhaps killing a spear scorpion would be the key to breaking the situation. But this operation was quite risky. The group of people came to the Goldstones to spend the night. The night wind blew gently on their faces. The moonlight shone on the desert. ZD asked the substitute, "Sir, when do you think we should kill a spear scorpion?" The substitute was silent for a moment. "Let's wait and see." This answer made the girl's heart jump. She secretly guessed, could it be that he wants to do it alone in the middle of the night? When we were encircling the flying squirrel horde, his arms became thicker. He must have turned into a beast again. Maybe he can already control the ability to turn into a beast. During the day, he can't turn into a beast in public. This will arouse the suspicion of others. It's very suitable to make a move here at night. The Goldstones can block a lot of vision. However, on the second day, ZD's expectations were disappointed. This made her realize a part of the truth. It seems that he can't turn into a beast on his own accord. The first 2 times, he must have been stimulated. That's why he changed. But in reality, even if he was stimulated by death, he might not necessarily turn into a beast. The first time he fought with a monkey-tail brown bear, he never turned into a beast. The exploration team left the gold stones, and the spear scorpions continued to chase after them. Everyone trekked in the scorching desert. Not only did they have to bear with the scorpions, they also had to endure the cruel environment. Food and water were getting scarce. The situation became more and more difficult. The injured Baya fainted. In a desperate situation, everyone was restless and fearful. They subconsciously turned their anger, panic, and other emotions into words to attack Song-Su. Song-Su pointed out coldly. At the critical moment, they could use the unconscious Baya as food. You've read too little. Now, I'll tell you a principle. You can eat your own kind. There's an insect called a praying mantis. When a male praying mantis mates with a female praying mantis, the female praying mantis will eat the male praying mantis that night to replenish her own nutrients. Only then can she give birth to offspring more smoothly. For any life form, the most basic thing is survival and reproduction. If we can't even guarantee our own survival, what law and morality are we talking about? These words made ZD so afraid that her body trembled slightly. What made her afraid was not that she agreed with Song-Su's words, but that she understood that when it came to the last moment, this was the only way to survive. Do I have to eat meat too? No. If I do this, what's the difference between me and a beast? But if I don't eat, my chances of survival will be even slimmer. Wait a minute. If I unfortunately die, will my corpse be taken by others? Song-Su's words made ZD suddenly realize the horror of the future. At this moment, the girl shuddered and felt extremely helpless. She subconsciously looked at the substitute. The substitute frowned and said with a stern expression, Song-Su, please take back your words. Baya is definitely not food, but our companion. I will never allow the tragedy of my companions eating each other to happen. For a moment, it seemed that the light and warmth shrouded ZD again. The girl suddenly became firm and swore in her heart. Even if I die, I won't eat the flesh of my companions. Thank you, my knight, you've protected me again. She gritted her teeth and persisted. The group walked out of the desert and entered the volcanic landscape. Although the environment was more dangerous, it gave the group an opportunity to deal with the scorpions. In a cave that was likely to be an active volcano, ZD used drugs to corrode the cave walls and transformed it into a battlefield that was very beneficial to humans. In this battlefield, the exploration team fought fiercely and suffered heavy casualties in the end. Only the substitute, ZD, Baya, and Song-Su were left, trapped in the cave. After ZD's test, the scorpion meat was inedible, and the four of them only had 2 bags of water left. There's no way. I can't think of any way. ZD broke down emotionally. The substitute comforted her. We can't use low-level magic here. It's been too hard on you all this time. No, it's me. I've implicated you, Lord Jinjin. If it weren't for my suggestion, we wouldn't have sneaked onto this ship. We wouldn't have fallen to this island. When we encountered the lizards and the spear scorpions, you could have abandoned me and survived alone. At this point, ZD suddenly realized something. Her chances of survival were quite slim, but the substitute was different. He could escape alone. He had the strength to do so. Therefore, she begged, Sir, please go. Don't worry about me anymore. You can leave this place. Along the way, the girl no longer regarded the substitute as a tool, no longer regarded him as a werbeast. She recognized him and confirmed that the young man in front of her was a real knight. She had done something wrong. She had lied to him, even though the war dealer was the culprit, and she was forced to do so. Even though she had awakened the substitute at that time, because she was chased by the blue dog fox wolf and had no choice but to take a risk. Of course, the girl wanted the substitute to get rid of the scorpions and escape from this island with her. But reality was not a fairy tale. I don't want to drag you down anymore. Death is my destined ending. Why should I drag you down with me? In this series of things, you are the most innocent. I'm sorry, I lied to you. The guilt in her heart made ZD open her mouth to speak. She had the urge to tell the truth. The substitute smiled slightly with a hint of doting. He brushed away a strand of hair that covered ZD's eyes. You are my fiancé, and I am your knight. It is my responsibility to protect you. I will protect you until the end of my life. At this moment, ZD felt as if her heart had melted. Jinjin finally made up his mind. I'll leave. I'll leave at dawn. After I rush out, I will try my best to attract the scorpions. You guys take the opportunity to leave here and go separately. The escape plan was very simple, and the possibility of escaping was extremely slim. But what else could they do? At dawn, I will tell him the truth. This night should be the last night of my life. Let me enjoy this beautiful time. The girl had a small selfish thought. Lying in the substitute's arms, ZD fell asleep peacefully. Late at night, ZD was awakened by Song-Su's words. She curled up in the substitute's arms, but did not open her eyes directly. Instead, she listened quietly. Song-Su urged the substitute to eat a full meal to increase the probability of survival and asked him to fulfill his last wish. But the substitute refused. ZD opened her eyes and promised Song-Su, "If I escape, I will also help you fulfill this last wish." Then, she took out a few letters. In fact, I think Baya also told me his last wish. She hoped that the substitute would eat some to increase his physical strength and increase the probability of survival. But it was very difficult for her to persuade him like this. She hoped that the substitute would become a beast, break through the bottom line, and save himself. But at the same time, she hoped that he would always adhere to the spirit and character of a knight and not fall. In the end, the substitute still shook his head. I will not treat people as food. He turned his gaze to ZD with a trace of apology. This gaze made ZD calm down instantly, and all her hesitation disappeared. She shook her head and smiled. "Sir, youth and I are one. Any decision you make is my decision. P.S. I have revised it many times, mainly because I am uncertain and hesitated for a long time. After thinking deeply, I decided to write this memory completely. From the whole first volume, this is an indispensable part. It is also the key to portraying ZD on the surface and secretly creating the substitute according to the previous text. Through the speculation of the identity of a beast and a knight, the depth of thinking in this volume is expanded. The previous text is mainly about the substitute speculation. This is ZD speculation. From the perspective of the person involved and the spectator, some things can be dug deeper. The update was supposed to be released at 12 o'clock, but the actual update was close to 24 o'clock. Today was a torture for me, but also a training. In the end, I chose to stick to my own ideas and write the work I want to write. I feel physically and mentally exhausted. I need a rest tomorrow. This book has been updated until now and has not stopped. The actual writing is more difficult than Gu Immortal. I need to take a break. Chapter 199. The volcano in the distance spewed out a huge amount of red magma. The lava spewed high into the air. Just by looking at it, it was at least 800 meters high. The dark smoke covered half of the sky. The bright red magma rushed to the peak and began to splash in all directions. Fortunately, we are still in the periphery. Let's go. Song-Su urged. ZD walked slower and slower, turning her head from time to time. Before the girl set off, she thought that she was doomed. She and Song-Su really escaped from a cave, and the process was smooth beyond imagination. All of this was because the substitute had attracted all the scorpions. How safe I am here. How dangerous is he there? How is he now? ZD's reason told her that the substitute was very likely to have died, but her feelings held her back. Even if there was a glimmer of hope, she wanted to wait. She even had this thought in her mind. Even if I have to see his corpse, let me see him for the last time. Let me give up. Lord Jinjin's physical condition is very poor. He hasn't eaten, and his strength is lacking. Facing the scorpion's pursuit and siege, the consumption of strength will be very fierce. The longer it takes, the slimmer his chances of survival will be. Song-Su sighed. ZD was extremely irritated and wanted to scold Song-Su to shut him up. She continued to wait. Just as the girl was about to lose all hope, a figure appeared in her vision. This figure left a deep impression on ZD. So much so that when she first appeared, ZD wondered if she was hallucinating. But soon, she cried out in surprise. Her knight was back, as beautiful as those stories about heroes. He also brought Baya back. ZD sighed, her tone complicated. This is a holy night. Sang-soo praised from the bottom of his heart. Both sides met up, and ZD immediately healed the substitute. During this process, she saw that the substitute had suffered new injuries due to the spear scorpion. She was also keenly aware that the substitute's mental state was completely different. Could it be that at the critical juncture of life and death, he was stimulated and turned into a beast again? That should be the case. He can't use his fighting aura. He can only rely on his beast form to defeat the scorpions. Although they had gotten rid of the scorpions, there were only 4 people left in the exploration team. The substitute, ZD, Sang-soo, and the unconscious Baya. Is this the center of the island? Could the alchemy factory be here? ZD had such a guess, but she had never thought of exploring this place. The environment here was too dangerous. There were erupting volcanoes, terrifying lava, and the gold-tier lava tortoise that they had just witnessed. Also, she had no reason to persuade the others to go deeper. She couldn't be sure that the alchemy factory was hidden here. Although Sang-soo persuaded the substitute to give up on the unconscious Baya, the substitute would rather bear the burden himself than abandon his companions. The substitute said, "I once said that I would do my best to save everyone. I would not give up on anyone. This is my promise, and also my responsibility. My lord, your noble character makes the bright stars in the night sky dim." Sang-soo sighed from the bottom of his heart. "You are the model of the holy knights." The substitute smiled bitterly and shook his head. Seeing such an expression, ZD understood more clearly. My previous guess should be the truth. He defeated the scorpions by turning into a beast. But he must be distressed and confused because of this. The body of a holy knight will never undergo such a mutation. The double's annoyance and suspicion made ZD feel very sad. I should have told him the truth. Last night, ZD quietly made the decision to tell the substitute the truth at dawn. But at dawn, she hesitated again. If I tell him the truth, will it disturb him? Will it make his mood chaotic and complicated? He wants to lead the scorpions away, and his situation is more dangerous than ours. In this way, in her hesitation, she lost her opportunity. I should have told him the truth. Even if he is not Jinjin, not a holy knight, he was originally a knight. But his original identity, that's all I know. ZD made up her mind again. Food was seriously scarce, and the 4 of them returned to the desert with only a small lizard and a jumping mouse in their hands. The substitute gave all the precious meat to ZD and Sang-soo. Baya's condition became worse. Not only did he continue to be unconscious, but he also had a high fever. There's movement. The substitute's face darkened. You guys eat first. I'll be on the lookout and expel or kill any beast that might exist. The substitute disappeared for a while and rushed back. He seemed a little different. ZD was keenly aware of some changes in the substitute. ZD and Sang-soo left the meat skewers uneaten and pushed them to the substitute. Do you want me to break my oath? Do you want my honor as a knight to be tarnished? Junjin's expression became very solemn. ZD and Sang-soo both looked at Jinjin, feeling as if his whole body was emitting a holy light. For a moment, both of them were physically and mentally shaken and did not make sound. Burp. At this moment, Junjin could not help but burp. Sang-soo and ZD. ZD's eyes widened. What did I just hear? A burp? He's full? What did he eat? No, that's impossible. He's a knight, and he won't eat behind our backs. Maybe it's not a burp, but just gas from the reflux of his stomach. But if he really ate something, does that mean he's a beast? At dawn, the 4 of them set off again. When they saw the golden stones again, the substitute left the team early and went deep into the stones. I'll be back soon. If you have to move, use the pink potion to mark the route. Soon, he returned successfully and told them that he had killed the lizards in the stone group. Soon, under his lead, ZD, Song-Su, and the others arrived at the battlefield. Song-Su could not help but praise, "Lord Jinjin, now I'm beginning to believe Lady ZD's guess. I'm afraid you're not just a silver warrior. It's very unusual that you can still have such powerful combat strength when your physical strength is so poor. There were at least 30 lizards in this group, but you killed 5 of them with just an ordinary saber and without using any do chi. You even forced the rest of the lizards to flee." ZD was quietly sizing up the battlefield. Soon, her eyes focused on the impact marks on the golden stones and the hole that seemed to be made by a spear scorpion's tail. In such a short time, the substitute's cleaning of the battlefield was actually limited. There was no spear scorpion in his story. Could it be that he transformed into a scorpion tail and defeated the lizards? ZD's heart skipped a beat. She looked around and suddenly focused again. Then, her heart raced and her cheeks burned. She saw the hole in the substitute's pants at his hip. The hole was faintly visible because the substitute had put his shirt out, and his motive for covering it was very obvious. All the clues match up. Wait, last night he burped. If it was lizard meat, according to his character, he would definitely bring it back and share it. But he didn't. He has something he can't say. His food should be the golden stones. He can transform into a scorpion tail, and I'm afraid he can transform even more. After transforming, he can use the golden stones as food. But he can't share the golden stones, because a normal person can't eat this kind of thing. ZD continued to think, and recalled that before the substitute left last night, he deliberately asked Song-Su about how the spear scorpion digested its food. He made preparations in advance. In other words, before he left, he knew that he could transform into a spear scorpion or become a part of it. But he wasn't sure if he could really feed on the golden stones. That's why he asked Song-Su. This means that he can take the initiative to transform into a beast. Maybe it's because he has transformed into a beast many times, and practice makes perfect. Or maybe it's because the battle with the spear scorpion this time was so exciting that he broke through and could freely control the ability to transform into a beast. After guessing the substitute's secret, ZD's heart was filled with tenderness. This fool, he would rather take the risk of eating stones and give us the meat skewers. He definitely doesn't want to transform into a beast because he believes that he is Junjin, a holy knight. But he has to do this because of the circumstances and to protect me. At this moment, ZD's heart surged with an impulse to tell the substitute the truth. She wanted to stand beside the substitute, hold his hand, and share all kinds of worries and troubles with him. However, when this impulse reached her mouth, ZD lost her courage. She could only stare at the substitute with her pair of amethyst-like eyes and say softly, "Sir, please don't take such risks in the future. Many times, we can take the long view." The substitute did not know that the girl in front of him had already seen through his secret. He nodded. "Don't worry, I know what to do. In fact, ever since I got rid of the scorpion swarm, I have a brand new feeling. I seem to have broken through something, but it also seems that I haven't. Now when I fight, my thoughts are clearer than before, and I understand the state of my body better. I know what I can do and what I can't do." He wanted to lay down some things. He deliberately said it very vaguely to leave some impressions on the people around him. In the future, after he used his mind core to deal with the threat, others would not feel that his strength was strange and sudden. The lizard meat saved the 4 of them. With enough food, the 4 of them now needed to replenish their water. According to Song-Su's speculation, there must be a large water source around the lizard swarm, most likely an oasis. Not long after, the 4 of them found the oasis and entered it. Here, they saw Lan Zhao and Huang Zhao. Huang Zhao was already dead. His face was pale, his body was broken, and the blood and bones were a shocking sight. Song-Su and ZD, who came later, saw this scene and suddenly stopped in place. Ugh! ZD was caught off guard and immediately retched, almost vomiting the acid in her stomach. It's me, I'm the one who killed him. I killed him. I killed Huang Zhao. I kill my brother. I killed him. I killed my last family member in this world. Lan Zhao cried bitterly, and ZD also felt fear for the beast-like Lan Zhao. At night, by the bonfire, ZD persuaded the substitute. We saw Huang Zhao's body. Cyanobacteria himself admitted his guilt. This kind of person is too cruel. How can we let him live? I also found that Lan Zhao's back seemed to have been sprayed with acid. The wound was rotten, but it was obvious that it had been treated and bandaged before. This is obviously the work of the yellow algae. Cyanobacteria alone wouldn't be able to treat the injury to this extent. Huang Zhao helped his brother and carefully bandaged Lan Zhao's wound. But what did Lan Zhao do? This kind of person is really too scary. Song Su's view was different, and he argued with ZD. The substitute's expression was struggling, and it was obviously very difficult. Late at night, ZD vaguely heard the substitute's prayer. God, Shengming Emperor, my great lord. Under your gaze, the world is bright, and the shadows flee in panic. Now, your believer, your knight repents to you, because I have fallen into the mire of my heart. Please shine your light on me, and let my corruption, ugliness, filth, and filth fade away. I beseech you to forgive me for the sins of my thoughts. The long confession ended. The gentle night wind blew in the young knight's ear. Everything was within Zhang Jin's expectations. The god did not respond. The young man sighed in disappointment. ZD also sighed in her heart. Right now was a good time to tell the truth, but she did not have the courage. She really did not have the courage to speak. She was very afraid. In the past, she was afraid that the substitute would be stimulated, and his bestial nature would erupt, which would be disadvantageous to her. But now, after experiencing all kinds of hardships, she had been saved by him so many times that she could not count. Even if his bestial nature erupted and he killed her, at worst, she would just give her life back to him. What she was afraid of was how the substitute would look at her. She was afraid to see his completely disappointed expression. If he was not Jinjin, I would not be his fiancé. Although she knew that the substitute was not her fiancé, she hoped that he would think so. The sun rose, and it was a new day. The substitute, ZD, and Song Su began to work hard for survival again. The substitute hunted and explored. Song Su made pottery pots, and ZD made the insect repellent. She sighed again. The barbarian leather scroll was so useful. On this strange island, it was this leather scroll that had helped her so much. According to the plan, ZD began to build a small tent made of palm leaves. She half knelt on the ground, and her upper body went into the tent as if she was adjusting the palm leaves inside. Her lower body was left outside, and her brownish-yellow leather boots were no longer covered by the magic robe. Because of her posture, the magic robe clung to her hips, outlining a moving curve. The substitute could not help but be attracted and stopped to watch for a long time. He was just looking at me. ZD noticed and felt shy and happy. The substitute left again, and ZD continued to build the tent. In the process, Baya woke up. You're awake. Lady ZD, thank you, don't thank me. Everything is to Lord Zhang Jin's credit. He saved you. We have actually abandoned you. ZD told Baya the details, with a kind of pride and faint flaunting. The group of lizards came to fetch water, and the group of fat flying fish appeared, causing a crisis. Run, back to the camp. You will be a burden to me if you stay here. The substitute's expression changed slightly, and he shouted in a low voice. Song Su and ZD immediately turned around and ran with all their strength. The substitute killed some fat flying fish, and then turned into a spear scorpion to lead the rest of the fish away. Where is he standing? Standing on a high slope near the camp. ZD was full of expectation and worry. Suddenly, her eyes were inexplicably attracted by a silver spear scorpion. She watched the silver spear scorpion plunge into the running group of lizards. The spear scorpion had obviously attracted a large number of fish, and the lizards were all in trouble. Is it him? Is it him? Very strangely, ZD instantly recognized the true identity of the spear scorpion. Although before this, she had never thought that the substitute would turn into a complete spear scorpion. ZD was absent-minded. In her eyes, the image of the spear scorpion gradually changed, and he became a substitute. He was galloping on a horse, wearing white armor and holding a spear, moving freely on the battlefield. Chapter 200. After watching the spear scorpions and lizards leave the oasis together, ZD turned around and rushed back to the camp. What she didn't expect was that not long after she returned to the camp, there would be a fat ball flying fish visiting the camp. Unfortunately, ZD was shot by a fishbone. Am I going to die? ZD hid in the tent. She was so nervous and scared that she was sweating all over. She knew that no one could help her. The only person who could help her the most was herself. After being shot, she was stunned for a moment. Then, she immediately pulled out the fishbone and hurriedly opened her bag. She quickly poured out bottles of medicine. Soon, she found a light blue medicine that had a strong antidote to poison. I'm saved. At this moment, ZD was glad that she had prepared enough antidotes. After escaping danger, ZD hurriedly took out more light blue medicine and risked climbing out of the tent. Catch it. This potion can alleviate the poison of the fishbone. ZD threw the light blue potion to the others. Even cyanobacteria got a bottle. However, after ZD threw it to Lonzeo, she was stunned. She suddenly realized that this was her best chance to get rid of Lonzeo. ZD didn't have a good impression of Lonzeo, who killed his own brother. She was very cautious and vigilant. However, the substitute didn't listen to her suggestion to get rid of Lonzeo and kept him alive. If I don't save him, he will probably die from the fishbone. After ZD got into the tent, she immediately regretted it. She was too nervous and didn't think carefully. She subconsciously threw the medicine to Lonzeo. The substitute didn't come back, but there were more and more fat ball flying fish coming to the camp. ZD shrank in the tent and felt more and more afraid. She couldn't see the flying fish, but she could hear them making croaking sounds. These sounds are getting louder and more frequent. If this continues, there will be more and more flying fish. Once I'm hit by too many fish bones, no amount of medicine can cure the poison. Just as the situation became more and more dangerous, ZD suddenly heard Lonzeo's roar. Then, she heard Lonzeo's roar and the sound of him fighting with the fat ball flying fish. ZD took the risk to open a corner of the tent and saw Lonzeo running out of his tent like a madman. He came to the center of the campsite and threw stones at the fat ball. ZD was surprised to find that Lonzeo seemed to be able to pinpoint the location of the fat ball flying fish. Seeing this, she hurriedly threw her sword to Lonzeo. On the other side of the tent, Sang-Soo also made the same choice. Now that Lonzeo had a weapon, he immediately stabilized his position and fought fiercely with the fat ball flying fish, attracting all the attention of the school of fish. Lonzeo's battle bought precious time for ZD, Sang-Soo, and the others, delaying the battle until the substitute came back. At this time, ZD was hit by a fishbone again. She couldn't help but cry out. This was already the fourth time. The fat ball flying fish self-destructed and the fish bones flew everywhere. The tent woven from palm leaves couldn't block all the fish bones. ZD calmed down and was about to take out a light blue potion when someone suddenly barged into her tent. ZD immediately became nervous, and then she found out that it was the substitute. Just as she was about to relax, she heard the substitute's concerned voice, "Let me see." The next moment, the substitute hugged ZD and savagely tore a hole in her apprentice's cloak, exposing the wound near ZD's chest to the substitute. ZD! She was stunned, and her whole body froze like a stone statue. Her movements of taking out the light blue potion also stopped. With this delay, the dark poison on her delicate skin was spreading at a speed visible to the naked eye. The substitute was very nervous, and without hesitation, he pulled out the fish bones, then lowered his head and pressed his lips tightly against the wound to suck it. In an instant, ZD's pupils shrank. The suction force from the wound was so strong. It was like a magic attack. ZD even felt that her soul was being sucked out at this moment. The girl's shyness and a natural resistance from being attacked made her subconsciously reach out and push the substitute's chest. The substitute didn't move. She felt that the substitute's chest was so hard. It was like a huge rock. His arms seemed to be made of steel as he held the girl tightly in his arms. The strong masculine aura was like a wave, engulfing ZD's body and mind. She had never been treated like this before. Her whole body was numb and hard, and her mind was in a daze. She couldn't even think. Her whole body was extremely nervous. Her toes were clenched, and her small leather boots subconsciously rubbed against the ground in the tent. She lay flat, her eyes looking at the tent. The space in the tent was so narrow. ZD felt that she was getting hotter and hotter, and it was more and more difficult to breathe. It felt like a long century had passed, but also like only a few breaths. The substitute finally stopped sucking and let go of the girl. His efforts were quite fruitful. The poison in ZD's wound was basically sucked out, and it didn't spread in the girl's body. ZD suddenly felt that she seemed to be able to breathe again. Her whole body was hot, and her head was buzzing. She stammered, "Yes, sir, I have medicine. I can cure this poison." She took out a small glass bottle from her bag, which contained light blue potion. The dark poison immediately dissipated when it met the light blue potion. The effect was very good. Jinjin, the young knight, realized his recklessness and looked a little embarrassed. He coughed and said, "That's good. I'll go check on the others." The substitute left. ZD suddenly felt that the tent was empty. Then, complex emotions surged from the bottom of her heart like a tide. What did he do to me just now? My God, why didn't I resist? No, I resisted, but I couldn't stop him. How could he do this? No, he didn't know about the light blue potion, so he didn't mean to violate me. He did it to save me. For a moment, ZD's thoughts were in a mess, and she forgot that the camp was still under attack by the fat ball-flying fish. The substitute returned to help, killed the fat ball-flying fish, and successfully saved the camp. Lanzeo was seriously injured, and the poison was very deep. "Sir, save me." Lanzeo, who was dying, grabbed the substitute's trousers and let out a weak cry. The substitute asked ZD to lend a helping hand. Although ZD had persuaded the substitute to get rid of Lanzeo and regretted her decision to throw the potion, she was now sincerely going to rescue him. Without Lanzeo's delay, we definitely wouldn't have been able to hold on until the substitute returned. From this point of view, we were saved by him once. ZD went all out and made the potion. Coupled with Baya's risky drug use, Lanzeo was finally out of danger. After resting in the oasis for a number of days, the four of them left the oasis and trekked all the way into the forest. Because of the substitute's rash drug use, there was an extra layer of awkwardness between ZD and him. The communication between the two of them was significantly reduced. Even if there was eye contact, they quickly looked away. However, every time she looked at the substitute, ZD's heart would beat faster. The substitute explored the road in front, and ZD's gaze was always involuntarily fixed on his back. Often under this kind of gaze, time flew by quickly. The originally torturous trek seemed insignificant under ZD's feelings. Although she didn't speak much with the substitute in a day, ZD felt sweetness in this atmosphere. Maybe it's good to go all the way like this, as long as I'm with him. ZD sighed in her heart. However, the good times didn't last long. Deep in the forest, the substitute keenly discovered the battlefield where Zhonggu and the beasts were fighting fiercely. Following the traces, they soon found the camp. Seeing the familiar camp, ZD's pupils shrank instantly. It was in this camp that she and the previous guards were attacked by the blue dogs, fox, and wolf again. In the face of danger, she could only open the wooden box, drag out the sleeping substitute, and make an emergency retreat. The camp should have been teleported here and was being attacked by the bat monkeys. The situation was not good. Under careful observation, Jinjin, who was acting as Hei-Wan, escaped from the camp. The moment she saw him, ZD felt like she was struck by lightning. She didn't think that she would meet her real fiancé so soon in this place. She wasn't ready. Hei-Wan took the opportunity to crawl on his hands and feet and dashed towards the forest outside the camp. The bronze bat monkey screamed, flapped its wings, and chased after Hei-Wan. He's going to die. He's going to die. Seeing that her fiancé was about to be killed by the bat monkeys, ZD's heart pounded and her mouth went dry. She actually felt a mixture of fear and anticipation in her heart. Fate was so unpredictable. Her mother died, her father died, the war dealer died, and she fell in love with a substitute. Now, her fiancé was going to die too. If Hei-Wan dies, then he will be the only Zhenjin. It will be very difficult to deceive the Empire, but that's something to consider in the future. He's going to die. I didn't kill him. He was killed by a magical beast. ZD had never thought of marriage alliance, never thought of marrying Zhenjin. Now that Zhenjin was going to die in front of her, she felt relaxed, a kind of release. But the next moment, a gust of wind blew behind her, and the dart whistled sharply, killing the bat monkey in one strike and saving Zhenjin. ZD's face was pale as she looked behind her. Just as she expected, the person who saved Zhenjin, it was the substitute. Chapter 201. The substitute saved Jin Zhen and then bravely rushed into the camp. He defeated the group of bat monkeys almost single-handedly and saved everyone. With the camp safe, the substitute was warmly welcomed by everyone and treated as a hero. ZD's heart was heavy apart from the joy of victory. The sudden appearance of Jin multiplied the pressure on her and made her flustered. She had originally planned to treat the substitute as a tool. If she escaped from Confusion Island, she would continue to cooperate with the Hundred Needles clan. Because the war dealer was dead, she had no ability to carry out her original plan. But now, after going through so many adventures, ZD's thoughts on the substitute had changed dramatically. Compared to Zhenjin, she was more willing to think for the substitute. But the substitute was still a substitute, relying on her alone, relying on the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce, relying on a substitute who did not know the truth. How could she resist the Hundred Needles clan? I almost exposed myself. ZD paced back and forth in the tent with lingering fear in her heart. Everyone in the camp was busy cleaning up the battlefield. Wait a little longer. He must be impatient now and will take the initiative to find me. I have to calm him down first. Sure enough, ZD's guess was confirmed. The tent was opened and Zhenjin quickly bent over and crawled in. Seeing the purple-eyed girl, Zhenjin showed an exaggerated smile and was very enthusiastic. My dear ZD, you're fine. That's great. I thought you were killed. I was so sad those days. Zhenjin stepped forward and opened his arms, wanting to hug ZD. ZD's heart was filled with disgust. She immediately took a step back and pretended to look around nervously. Sir, be careful not to be seen. In fact, the two of them were inside the tent, isolated from sight. How could anyone see them? Zhenjin's face fell when he was rejected. ZD quickly pretended to be excited. While explaining, she deliberately flattered. After the shipwreck, I and a group of people were washed to the beach on the other side of the island by the current. Sir, I've been trying to find you these days. We are not fated to die. When I saw you just now, I was so excited that I almost called out your identity. Fortunately, when I saw the look in your eyes, I came back to my senses. After hearing ZD's words, Zhenjin's mood immediately improved. He asked about the strength of the substitute. ZD shook her head. He's a word beast, but the memory infusion isn't complete. I found that he can partially shape-shift. As for whether or not there is a stronger combat power, I don't think there is much. She had concealed many things, such as the fact that her substitute could completely transform into a silver spear scorpion. However, ZD went on to describe some other things in detail. These things were not important, but they successfully won Zhenjin's trust. Zhenjin couldn't help but reveal a look of disappointment. It seems like he can't beat Zhongge. ZD was about to ask who Zhongge was when footsteps came from outside the tent. Someone is coming. ZD suddenly became nervous and immediately reminded Jinjin. Jinjin could only end a short conversation with ZD and leave quietly. Baya's voice came from outside the tent. Lady ZD, the wounded have been gathered. Everyone is waiting for you to treat them. ZD went to check on the wounded and saw the unconscious Fat Tongue among them. The young girl was overjoyed and relieved. This elder of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce had followed ZD's father for a long time. He was loyal and took good care of ZD. However, when the shipwreck happened, ZD tried to find Fat Tongue but couldn't find him. The speed of the ship's water was getting faster and faster. ZD could only lead a group of people and quickly escape. When ZD was thinking about what kind of medicine to make, Fat Tongue woke up. He was very excited to see ZD again. Okay, get up quickly. ZD had to go forward and pat Fat Tongue's shoulder. Come with me to pay your respects to Lord Jinjin. Jinjin? Lady's fiancé. Fat Tongue moved his hand away with a puzzled expression. ZD explained, please don't blame me, Fat Tongue. I hid some things from you. This time, I went to White Sand City not only to prepare for the 100 Needles clan. My real intention was to cover up my tracks and escort Lord Jinjin to White Sand City ahead of time. The people of the 100 Needles clan arranged for Lord Jinjin met with misfortune halfway. I discussed with Lord Jinjin and felt that it was a malicious obstruction by a competitor. There is a time limit for the City Lord election. If you don't reach the city on time, Lord Jinjin will lose a lot of points. In order to prevent the competitor's conspiracy from succeeding, Master Jinjin used me as a cover and changed his name. He followed me and boarded the Pig's Kiss. So that's how it is. Fat Tongue suddenly understood. ZD brought Fat Tongue to see the substitute. The substitute was in the campsite, and there were many people around him. They surrounded him like stars surrounding the moon. ZD introduced, Lady, this is Fat Tongue, one of the elders of the Purple Vine Chamber of Commerce. This time we're going to White Sand City, and he'll be my assistant. Fat Tongue greets Lady. Fat Tongue quickly bowed to the substitute with a face full of smiles. Seeing this scene, ZD's heart was in a trance. She couldn't help but imagine, if he really is Jinjin, how good would that be? Unfortunately, he isn't. At this moment, ZD actually hoped that the war trafficker was still alive. Because of his support, the previous plan to replace Jinjin had a possibility of success. The substitute asked Mu Ban and the others about their experience. The voyage was originally going smoothly, but the ship's disaster suddenly happened. The Pig's Kiss was directly broken in half, but fortunately, it was very close to the island, so most of us escaped to the shore. We found that the captain was missing and the chief officer was in charge. Mu Ban told the substitute everything he knew as much as possible. ZD's heart also calmed down. She found that she wasn't suspected. Although the captain's body was found, the Zhongge had become the scapegoat. At the same time, she also learned about Zhun Jin's performance during this period. He has always been acting as He Wan and has never stepped forward. He is clearly a true holy knight, the only heir of the genuine 100 Needles clan. Such a noble identity should have allowed him to gain support. But he is so cowardly and timid that he has always been pretending. On the contrary, a beast man presided over justice and protected a weak woman. When I saw him before, he was also running away, abandoning his companions who were still fighting in the camp, without the slightest sense of responsibility. Although ZD had been in contact with Jinjin for a long time and knew his nature, at this moment, she still felt very disappointed, as well as ironic ridicule. The real Jinjin is so cowardly, but the fake Jinjin is a real, impeccable knight. If the two people's identities were switched, how good would that be? Thinking of this, ZD's mind suddenly had an idea. What if I killed Jinjin? This idea made her thoughts spread quickly. Jinjin is now He Wan. He is dead, and no one knows the truth. The substitute didn't know this secret. He always thought that he was Jinjin. The war trafficker is also dead. I have been on the island for so long, but but I haven't seen the sharp diamond. They must have also met with misfortune. I'm afraid that in this world, only I know this secret. If I kill him, this secret will be covered up. We will go to the wilderness continent, which is far away from the Shengming continent. I'm afraid that we won't be able to catch up with the competition for the position of White Sand City Lord. This is actually not bad. As long as they are not in a high position, who would care about the identity of a temple knight? Even if someone checked, it would be more lenient than checking the identity of a city lord. To pretend to be a city lord, I must need the help of a powerful person like the war trafficker. But to pretend to be a knight, maybe I can buy some magic tools and get away with it? Thinking of this, ZD's heart trembled. She felt fear. The target of fear was not others, but herself. A strong sense of guilt and remorse arose spontaneously. What's wrong with me? Why do I have to murder someone? ZD had always been law-abiding. She refused the marriage alliance and no longer used the money her father gave her. Even if life was difficult, she did not do anything out of line. After the incident at the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce, she endured for a long time. In order to take revenge for her father, she took the risk of taking over the broken Chamber of Commerce. Then, she was involved in the vortex of struggle. The assassination of Spiral Rock and the coercion of Sharp Drill made ZD have no choice but to choose the marriage alliance with the Hundred Needles family. However, on the Maze Island, the war trafficker came up with an even more vicious scheme, forcing ZD to cooperate with his scheme. ZD had no choice but to do so. On the Pig's Kiss, the war trafficker died, and ZD's magic contract and marriage contract were invalid. The shipwreck was also not in ZD's plan. She escaped all the way and struggled to get here, but she was sandwiched between Junjin and the substitute, suffering. For the first time in her life, she had the idea of murdering her fiancé. Heavens, why would I think like this? No matter how bad Junjin is, he is still an innocent person. I actually want to kill an innocent person for my own selfish reasons? ZD, when did I become so vicious? Are you such a vicious woman? ZD ruthlessly extinguished the thought of committing a crime in her heart. The substitute talked with everyone for a while, but the shipwright did not return. The situation was not right, so the substitute immediately set off to help the shipwright and the others. During the conversation, ZD understood Zhong Ji's strength, which made her very worried. Under normal circumstances, the substitute should not be able to stop the half-beast man. But if he turns into a beast, the trouble will be out of control. I have to do my best to help him. Seeing the substitute return the thin sword Silver Lightning to Junjin, ZD immediately persuaded the substitute to keep the sword. She also successfully persuaded the substitute to join the substitute's team. After successfully rescuing the shipwright and the others, ZD and the Sandow mercenary group met again and also saw how powerful Zongo was. ZD did not manage to persuade the Sandow mercenary group's people and tried to recruit Zongo. Zongo was not simple. He saw through Zhanjin's facade and rejected the recruitment. Just a bit more, and the substitute would have fought Mango. ZD was scared out of her wits. In the end, the substitute decided to accept Zongo and the others. This made the girl even more worried. Chapter 202. Zongo and the others returned to the camp with the substitute. Junjin was very dissatisfied. He went to ZD in private and said angrily, he really thinks that he is a holy knight. He even said that he would treat everyone equally. He provoked Zongo and the others just like that. Haha, how stupid. Jin Jun's anger exposed his timidity. ZD disdained him and persuaded him in a helpless tone. My lord, I didn't explain the situation clearly before. When a memory was instilled in the substitute, there was a very serious problem. We can't refute what the substitute did. This is your authority, sir. There are actually great benefits for him to do this. This is a perfect disguise. Now even Zongo is convinced of his identity. Jin Jun sighs deeply and is finally persuaded to give in. ZD was also very worried about the substitute's decision. He is too full of the spirit of night. If this time he is leading the wolf into the house, it will be terrible. Zhonggu and the others were settled near the camp. The substitute asked ZD for medicine and said that he wanted to give it to Zhonggu and the others. Is this kind of conciliatory strategy really effective? After they recover, they will be even stronger. What if they are unfavorable to us? Should I tamper with the potion? ZD had such thoughts, but she did not act on her own. According to my understanding of the substitute, he has a firm belief in knights, but he is not a pedantic person. When he accepted Lan Zhao, Huang Zhao, and the others' allegiance, this can be seen. Since he can take the initiative to receive Zhonggu and the others, it proves that he is confident that he can control the situation. In fact, he has been different since we got rid of the scorpions. Every day and night, he has to keep watch and spend some time alone. Is he familiarizing himself with his beast form? In the oasis, he transformed into a spear scorpion and moved very freely. Is this the result of practice? Or did the warmonger also instill gun scorpion's memory into him? And after training, it became muscle memory, and then finally erased it? In the end, ZD chose to trust the substitute and gave him the potion. In the name of ZD's research, the substitute had asked for most of the bat monkey's corpses, but in reality, he had only given her a portion. ZD was keenly aware of this secret. He secretly kept many bat monkey corpses. What does this have to do with his beastification? She continued to experiment and concocted a smoke drug that could restrain the bat monkeys. With the help of a flame, this potion can create a thick smoke that can suppress the bat monkey's sense of smell. The more you delve into the barbarian race's leather scroll, the more you'll discover its profoundness. Although the use of low-level magic and Do Chi was forbidden on Mystique Island, ZD was still improving. Ever since she had arrived on the island, all kinds of dangerous situations had forced her to put in all her effort to study the content of the barbarian tribe's leather scroll. She seriously lacked the tools to concoct potions, and medicinal herbs were often in a state of shortage. But in order to survive, she had to find ways to overcome these difficulties in reality. Most of the time, she had failed. However, after a lot of practice, whether it was a failure or a success, her understanding of the barbarian race's leather scroll was more than 10 times deeper than before. She was no longer limited to the potion formulas of the barbarian race when they were tired. Instead, she constantly innovated and mastered a lot of pharmacology hidden behind the formulas. What ZD didn't expect was that she would use the smoke drug the next day. While the substitute, Zhonggu, and the others were out cutting wood, the blue dog fox wolf led the bat monkeys to attack the camp again. The substitute, Zhonggu, and the others were temporarily held back by the beasts dispatched by the blue dog fox wolf. The bat monkeys had already rushed into the camp. ZD, Song Su, and the others could only resist and try their best to save themselves. Use these potions. At the critical moment, ZD took out a large amount of smoke drug. The drug played its role. The bat monkeys were restrained by the smoke, and their attacks were stagnant. Winning the critical time, the substitute, Zhonggu, and the others quickly eliminated the beasts that were blocking them and returned to the camp to kill. The beasts collapsed. The substitute heard strange cries and found the culprit behind the beasts. After he made the suggestion, he set off with Zhonggu and went deep into the forest to chase the fleeing beasts in an attempt to eliminate the real culprit. ZD and the others cleaned up the battlefield and waited in the camp. The substitute and Zhonggu had not returned. After a long time, Zhenjin once again sneaked into ZD's tent, his face full of panic and anger. Oh no, Zhonggu has returned, but the substitute is still missing. Zhonggu is injured, but he brought back the corpse of a magical beast like a giant python. ZD's heart suddenly thumped. She was worried, but she had to calm Zhenjin down. I have confidence in the substitute. He is not weak and won't be easily killed by a magical beast. But he might have been killed by Zhonggu. Zhenjin frowned and became more and more frantic. If he doesn't die this time and returns smoothly, we can't let him act on his own like this anymore. Who does he think he is? He went deep into the forest alone. This kind of risk is too stupid. We have to make good use of him and let him protect our safety. We have to make full use of his value. ZD tried to hide the disdain in her heart. She could hear that Jun Jin's anger came from fear. However, if Jin Jun really wanted to come up with a solution, he couldn't do it. ZD said, "To be honest, I just hope that the substitute can return safely. I'm already thankful." Jun Jin sighed again. "So I think so too." ZD, "If the substitute was really killed by Zongo, what should we do?" Jun Jin's face paled, and he sighed. "That would be terrible. Now we have to confirm the situation. We have to find Zongo and question him." ZD saw that Jin Jin was indecisive and could only speak her thoughts. "Go find Zongo now." Jun Jin hesitated. ZD tried to persuade him. "If the substitute dies, Zongo will definitely do something to us. He is injured now and is likely to be stalling for time. When he recovers, he will have a higher chance of success. We have to go and spy on him. If the substitute is not dead and is only in a dangerous situation, we have to immediately organize people to rescue him. Without the substitute, we can't resist Zongo." Jun Jin gritted his teeth and reluctantly nodded. "Then we will gather everyone and question him together." "No." ZD shook her head. "If there are too many people, it will make us look weak. Once a conflict breaks out, it will be difficult to control the situation. And even if we gather everyone, we are no match for Zongo and the others. This time, quality is more important than quantity." In the end, ZD chose Lan Zhao, Hei Wan, and a few others to take the initiative to find Zongo and question him. Zongo said frankly, "I didn't meet Lord Jinjin along the way. Not long after I chased him, I was blocked by a python-like magical beast. I fought with it for a long time before I got rid of it." "Then you don't want to go after the real culprit? You abandoned your comrade, Zongo." ZD's attitude was firm and her expression was angry. Her heart was filled with worry for the substitute. Zongo was pushed back by these words and snorted unhappily. But he also knew that he was in the wrong, and in the end, he gave the corpse of the magical beast to ZD and the others. The sun set in the west, and it was evening. Evening had passed, and night had fallen. The waiting time was so long that ZD fell into torment. "If he dies in the forest, what should I do?" "No, he won't die. He definitely won't. Calm down, ZD. Since he has the confidence to chase after the group of beasts, his strength must be able to deal with the possible dangers." However, Zongji's injuries and the corpse of the crocodile head hammertail centipede that he brought back told the girl about the terror and danger of this island. "My God, I beg you to bless him and let him return safely. Great Holy Lord, although he is not a true holy knight, he definitely has the indisputable spirit of a knight. I beg you to look after him." The girl prayed to God. She secretly swore, "If he comes back this time, I will tell him the truth." She also began to question fate. She could not help but think of that divination. Is this my fate? Is there no knight in my fate? Am I destined to be miserable for the rest of my life? Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, good news finally came. The substitute had returned. Seeing the substitute again, ZD's eyes were almost filled with tears. The substitute brought back the corpse of the blue dog Fox Wolf, which made her tremble in fear and feel proud. He eliminated another evil wolf. No wonder he came back so late. Because of the seriousness of the situation, the substitute gathered everyone to discuss after returning to the camp. ZD defended the substitute. "No, Lord Jinjin did the right thing. It was such a long journey. How could my lord carry a heavy corpse of a wolf and travel such a long distance in the forest in the middle of the night? My lord, you have dealt with the threat of the camp by yourself. You have already done very well. The most important thing is that you can return safely." The girl added in her heart. The substitute looked at the girl's beautiful amethyst-like eyes and smiled slightly. He reached out and held ZD's hand that was placed on the table. ZD's cold hand was held, and she immediately felt a wave of warmth. Her anxious heart seemed to have calmed down in an instant. "Oh no, Shunjin is right next to me." Immediately, ZD realized that something was wrong and subconsciously withdrew her hand. But in the end, she did not withdraw her hand and let Jinjin hold it. This warm and reliable feeling made her reluctant to part with it. Chapter 203. Based on the important information brought back by the substitute, everyone discussed for a while how to deal with the blue dog fox wolf. Everyone dispersed, and Junjin quietly slipped into ZD's tent again. He was full of anger. During the meeting, the substitute had openly held his fiancée's hand. This made Junjin very angry. When he saw ZD again, he immediately asked, "Tell me the truth. My beautiful and lovely fiancée, the substitute didn't touch you, did he?" ZD couldn't help but think of the scene in the oasis when he took drugs for her. But on the surface, the girl shook her head and denied it. She also reminded Jinjin that the most important thing right now was the blue dog fox wolf. Of course I have to care about that, but I also have to care about my fiancé, especially when another man personally held my fiancé's hand in front of me. I haven't even held your hand. With that, Junjin reached out to grab ZD's hand. Before ZD had time to think, her body reacted first. She quickly retracted her hand, and Junjin grabbed empty air. Jinjin was about to fly into a rage when the substitute's voice came from outside the tent. "ZD, are you asleep?" ZD suddenly became very nervous. If the substitute found out that another man was hiding in her tent, what would he think? ZD really didn't want the substitute to misunderstand her, even though she and Junjin were actually engaged. ZD quickly opened her mouth and silently motioned to Jinjin. Junjin quickly hid in a dark corner of the tent. The substitute entered the tent and found ZD nervous and anxious. He mistakenly thought that she was frightened by the blue dog fox wolf. The substitute sighed and pulled ZD into his arms. ZD's heart suddenly trembled. "Oh no, Jinjin is still hiding here. He will definitely see me." But in the end, the girl didn't resist. The warmth and reliability in her substitute's embrace was even stronger than when she had held her hand. ZD felt blissful in the arms of her body double. "Are you scared?" The double comforted him softly. "With my lord here, I'm not afraid," ZD said softly. At this moment, the girl threw her fiancé, Jinjin, who was still in the tent, to the back of her mind. She was willing to indulge in the embrace of happiness. "Yes, I will always be by your side." The first blue dog fox wolf died at my feet, and so did the second one. The third, the fourth, even if there are more, as long as I'm here, I won't let them hurt you. I promise you. Jinjin comforted. ZD raised her head in Junjin's arms. "Lord Jinjin, I believe in you." But at this moment, ZD felt a strange hardness. Her heartbeat quickened, and the intense shyness made her body tense up subconsciously. "All right, I came to find you this time, mainly because of some blood." The double smiled at ZD. "I need you to do it secretly. Don't tell anyone before there's a result." ZD's whole body was hot, and her heart was beating like a little rabbit. She heard vaguely, "My lord, what do you want to do?" A terrifying conjecture surfaced in her mind. Could it be that he wants to— Oh my God! He's a man who went deep into the forest, experienced the test of life and death, and killed the blue dog fox wolf with difficulty. He needs to calm down, and he does need some, to vent. But no. It's too soon. I don't have enough time to accept it. Wait, Jinjin, he's still hiding here. If I really do this, he will definitely not be able to hold back and jump out. At that time, he will be so angry that he will speak without thinking, and the secret will be exposed. I must stop this from happening. My lord, you're having a nosebleed. ZD's eyes lit up, and she seized the opportunity to change the topic, breaking the dangerous atmosphere in the tent. The double also felt the blood flowing, and he was extremely embarrassed. "Listen to me, ZD, it's not what you think." After a conversation, the double finally explained the real purpose of his visit. ZD exhaled a turbid breath, and a sense of loss inevitably surged from the bottom of her heart. After the double left, Junjin immediately jumped out and pointed at ZD, his whole body trembling. You You just said that he didn't do anything to you. Tell me the truth. Don't hide it from me. ZD was already mentally prepared. She had already considered Jun Jin's behavior when she was held in the double's arms. I'm telling the truth. ZD's face was full of nervousness, and there was also a sense of being wronged. My lord, how can you not believe me? How do you want me to believe you? You just threw yourself at another man in front of my eyes. Jin Jin roared. After being reminded by Jun Jin, ZD once again recalled the scene of her being hugged by the double. It seemed that the warmth of the double's embrace still lingered on her body. The girl's heart couldn't help but race again. But on the surface, she lowered her voice and deliberately intimidated Jin Jin. Lower your voice. Do you want him to hear you? He has a silver cultivation, and his hearing is more sensitive than ours. Frightened by her, Jun Jin immediately lowered his voice and immediately felt even more humiliated, seeing Haewon in front of her wanting to shout and vent his anger, but not daring to. ZD felt disdain in her heart, but at the same time, she felt a sense of satisfaction from revenge. She continued to intimidate Jin Jin. If he finds out that he's a fake, what do you think he'll do? My lord, do you think he'll accept the truth? Or will he kill you and replace you after discovering your identity? Jin Jin was completely frightened. ZD's tone then softened, and she tried her best to successfully appease him. After perfunctorily brushing Jin Jin off, ZD sighed deeply, feeling exhausted. How can I prevent this from happening again? If this happens a few more times, I'm afraid Jin Jin will explode. Reason told ZD to restrain her actions, but her feelings made ZD unable to refuse the double's every initiative. ZD was distressed by this. With dealing with the blue dog fox wolf and the magical beast army as the background, Zhonggu openly challenged the double's leadership position. A competition for information began between Zhonggu and the double. Zhonggu led all the way, but the double suddenly took out a complete map. The information marked on the map completely surpassed that of Zhonggu and the others. Jin Jin felt uneasy about this, but ZD comforted him again. In the defensive battle of the camp, the magical beast army attacked fiercely under the command of the two blue dog fox wolf. In the end, the camp was burned down, but the magical beast army also suffered heavy casualties and took the initiative to retreat. The raging fire lit up the night, and the thick smoke obscured ZD's sense of smell. She could not smell the double. Although she and the others had safely left the battlefield, she felt lonely and worried about the double's condition. The double appeared, covered in blood. ZD's nervous heart had just been relieved, but it was raised again. Looking at the double, ZD knew that he was seriously injured. But under such circumstances, the double still proposed to go after the magical beast army. It's too dangerous. Although ZD knew that the double's proposal was right, her feelings made her stop the double for the first time. But the double was very firm and called for everyone. In the end, Lan Zhao, Zhonggu, and Sandao responded. Before leaving, the double took ZD into his arms again. Once again, ZD threw the matter of the golden needle to the back of her mind. She strongly hoped that time would stop at this moment. The military situation was urgent, and the double resolutely left. ZD was extremely worried, but Jin Jin quietly found her again at this time. I don't want to see you throw yourself at him again. You know what I mean? Jin Jin warned ZD very sternly. ZD was angry. Sir, please don't use such words. I have never thrown myself at him. I know, but you've never refused. Sir, if I hide, won't it be too suspicious? ZD retorted. How do you want me to deal with it, so that we can continue with our plan? Please teach me. After ZD's persuasion and comfort, Jin Jin finally calmed down. I forgot myself. You're right. He's just a tool. A very useful tool. But unfortunately, he probably won't be able to come back this time. ZD was taken aback. Then, she revealed a sad and worried expression. She was so worried that she couldn't hide her true feelings. Jin Jin's gaze was focused on her face. What are you thinking? My fiancé, are you worried about him? Worried about a double, a chess piece? ZD was furious. At this moment, she wanted to refute loudly. He's not a chess piece. He's a knight, a real knight. He's much more outstanding than you. He's brave and farsighted. He's not afraid to sacrifice himself. He's now risking his life for us. ZD struggled to stop herself from venting her anger. She forced herself to glare at him, trying to make the true feelings on her face disappear. Sir, what's wrong with you? Am I wrong to be worried about him? If he dies, all our previous investments will go down the drain. It will also have a great impact on our future. After all, he's a silver knight, and you're only a black iron knight. A strong sense of shame and anger suddenly rushed to Junjin's head. He couldn't help but stare at ZD. I'll become a silver knight sooner or later. In fact, ZD was already regretting her words the moment she said them. She realized that she still couldn't control her anger, so she used a more tactful way to mock Junjin. She quickly tried to salvage the situation. Sir, your talent is obvious. Being a gold knight is definitely not your end. I'm sorry, I'm just nervous. If the double dies, how can we guarantee our safety? How can we escape from here? Sure enough, as she expected, once Junjin's attention was drawn to his own safety, he immediately lost the mood to argue with ZD. Time always felt incomparably long while waiting anxiously. The triumphant return of the double and the others made ZD overjoyed. She couldn't help but run out of the tent. She ran all the way, panting as she came to the double. He's still alive. That's great, he's back. The young girl thanked the heavens. Her thoughts and worries almost turned into tears at this moment. Sir, she almost took the initiative to run to the double and take the initiative to hug him. But in an instant, she thought of Junjin. Junjin must be watching. She could only clench her teeth and endure with difficulty. She let the emotions in her heart surge like a tide, constantly crashing against the dam in her heart. Chapter 204. ZD quietly lifted the flap of the tent and went in. The tent was tight and dark. The double was lying down and had already fallen into a deep sleep. ZD softly called out, "Sir," a few times, but the double did not respond at all and slept like a log. ZD sighed in her heart. He fought fiercely last night and ventured deep into the forest to hunt down the remaining magical beast army, completely draining his strength and energy. He really couldn't hold on, so he fell into a deep sleep as soon as he came back. But it's too reckless to not treat the wound. ZD carefully came to the double's side and half knelt on the ground. Her fingers trembled slightly as she slowly reached for the double's clothes. By the time ZD began to take off the double's clothes, her movements had become stable. She kept encouraging herself in her heart. ZD, muster up your courage. You can do it. He can risk his life to hunt you down. Can't you do this? Anyway, you've already done it once before in the cave where we encountered the brown monkey bear. It's not the first time, but we have to do it as soon as possible. The longer we delay, the greater the possibility of being discovered. In particular, we can't be discovered by Junjin, where the consequences will be unimaginable. After a while, ZD's face was full of sweat and she was panting. The double fell into the deepest sleep, and the whole body was dead. ZD found it very difficult to move it. At the same time, she felt a kind of happiness and excitement from the bottom of her heart, as well as a trace of excitement that ZD might not be able to detect. It was the excitement of secretly doing things behind Junjin's back. ZD was very surprised after thoroughly examining the double's body. There was no injury on the double's body, although the surface was bloody and looked very frightening. In fact, his physical condition was very good. ZD blinked repeatedly and was stunned on the spot. She suddenly thought of last night, when the double refused her treatment on the grounds that time was pressing. She immediately called everyone and led Zhonggu and the others to hunt him down. Could it be that he's not injured? Indeed, according to what the others said, he didn't sustain any obvious injuries during the fight. After that, the camp was set ablaze, but no one saw the scene of his battle. If that's the case, after he shape-shifted, his battle prowess was so powerful that he was unscathed. But this obviously doesn't conform to common sense, so he made such a disguise? You tricked me. ZD gritted her teeth and felt completely relieved. Looking at the body double who was still sleeping soundly, ZD suddenly had the urge to bite his cheek. So, you are brave and resourceful. You've always been confident. That's why you went after the blue wolf and a magical beast army. You called for others to go with you. Actually, it was more to get rid of the suspicion on yourself, right? After all, if you do it alone, people will be very suspicious. You made me so worried, you bad guy. ZD's fingers brushed across the body double's exposed chest. She bit her lip and finally couldn't resist the itch in her heart. She suddenly bent down and leaned close to the body double's face. But in the end, she didn't bite him. Instead, she kissed him lightly. After doing this, she felt as if her whole body was burning. What's wrong with me? She subconsciously covered her cheek and felt hot steam coming out of her ears and nose. Her heart beat wildly. Excitement and happiness hit her, causing her head to fall into a wonderful and slightly dizzy feeling. It wasn't until she left the body double's tent and was blown by the evening wind that she gradually woke up. Did I fasten the buttons on his clothes? ZD realized that she had no memory of this at all. During that period of time, her emotions were too turbulent. She wanted to confirm it, but at this time, someone approached. I should have fastened it for him. ZD hesitated for a moment. She felt guilty like a thief and hurriedly left with her head lowered. At night, the bonfire burned. Everyone ate dinner while discussing the body double with great enthusiasm. The most talked about was no longer the temple knights, but the divine knights. Song Su speculated, actually, it's not strange. The Lord Jin Jin himself is an excellent cultivator. His talent is outstanding. He has a noble bloodline and is a temple knight. He has dedicated all his faith to the Shengming Emperor. These already make him 1 in a million. But what's more valuable is that he has always adhered to the way of the knights. He helps the weak, punishes the evil, promotes the good, and takes care of the weak. Even if he has to sacrifice himself, he doesn't violate the principles of the temple knights. He is brave and fearless, fair and just. He is willing to accept anyone and everyone as his companions. From this, you can see his broad mind, as well as his compassionate and benevolent nature. Isn't it natural for such a person to be favored by God? Then, Song Su mentioned the general trend of the empire's invasion of the wilderness continent. From the political situation, he analyzed that the divine knights were bound to appear. ZD listened at the side and felt strange. The double was clearly a beast man, but in the end, he was bragged to be a divine knight. This was ridiculous. But Song Su's words, as long as one didn't know the truth, would basically think, hey, it's very reasonable. ZD was both happy and worried. What made her happy was that her substitute had gained more recognition and popularity from everyone. She was worried that once the truth was exposed, the psychological gap between them would be even greater than before. At that time, it would be hard to predict how they would react. The double woke up and came out of the tent. ZD shrunk her head guiltily, but the double's natural behavior made her gradually relax. She thought to herself, it seems that I did fasten his clothes, but I forgot. He shouldn't have noticed that I came to his tent. The double came to the crowd and was warmly praised by everyone. But the double chose to go to the side of Zhonggu, Sandao, and Lan Zhao, and personally led the crowd to cheer their names. The crowd was excited and cheered along with the double. The atmosphere was as warm as a bonfire. ZD stared at the double who was waving his arms and cheering in the crowd, her heart swaying. He is a real knight, and also an absolutely excellent leader. The next day, everyone dissected the blue dog fox wolf's corpse. If this wolf's corpse is not very valuable, I want to use it as a sacrifice to my lord, the great Shengming Emperor. After the double dissected the wolf, he proposed to take the wolf's corpse. The atmosphere in the tent immediately became solemn. Of course, Song Su was the first to respond. Zhonggu also agreed. Paladin, this was originally your spoils of war. ZD's heart suddenly moved. She remembered that the double had asked her for bear blood, secretly embezzled the bat monkey's corpse, and then asked Zongu and the others for bear meat. Now it's a wolf's corpse. Wait, could it be that only when the double eats apart a magical beast can he have the corresponding ability to transform into a beast? Is this a kind of growth or a kind of stimulation? To stimulate the ability that he originally had. He is the war trafficker's proudest work, and these man-made magical beasts were also made by the war trafficker. Maybe the war trafficker concentrated all the beast transformations on him. After being stimulated, his ability will be stimulated? Back then, he had a fierce battle with the monkey-tail brown bear, and in the end, he did not transform into a beast. However, when facing the blade spiders, he could not transform into the sharp claws of the monkey-tail brown bear. Maybe I once instilled the bear's blood into him in the cave. He analyzed all of this. No wonder after leaving the cave, he repeatedly asked me about the situation at that time. Thoughts flooded her mind. ZD did not hesitate to support the double's decision. We were able to survive and win. Thanks to the protection of the Shengming Emperor, we should indeed sacrifice to him. Under the lead of the double, the exploration team left the forest and rushed to the beach where the main force was. Along the way, they passed through the territories of countless groups of beasts. These blade spiders, monkey-tail brown bears, and so on had all mysteriously disappeared. Most of the people in the team were guessing that there should be a magical beast army led by the blue dog fox wolf around. It was constantly tailing them and taking in the wild groups of beasts. Only ZD gradually guessed the truth. It's you, right, Double? If it's the magical beast army, its scale is gradually increasing. It's impossible that we didn't notice any traces of it when we increased the number of scouts. Every night, you have to patrol at night and go out alone. It was you who secretly solved these obstacles and allowed us to collect the spider webs without any damage. It was you who eliminated all the monkey-tail brown bears and turned into a bear claw to secretly mine. You have taken on too much, and the secret sacrifice is beyond the imagination of others. All of us have benefited because of you, but most of us don't know it. ZD felt bitter and wronged for the double, but she also felt admiration and pride for it. Under the lead of the double, although the exploration team was under pressure and trekking was difficult, there were few casualties, and the overall journey was very smooth. They collected a lot of supplies along the way and gradually moved from the forest to the rainforest. Shisuo surrendered to the double and gave up making things difficult for Zongu. Mengu also submitted for the time being. The entire exploration team was harmonious, as if they were one. The hidden worries in ZD's heart never decreased, but accumulated with time. I'm Jinjin. He's an imposter. ZD, who was sleeping soundly, suddenly heard Hei Wan shout from outside the tent. No. ZD quickly got up and ran out. She saw the double surrounded by people and tied to a cross. A large amount of dry would have been piled up around it. Stop, ZD shouted. But the next moment, Hei Wan smiled cruelly and threw the torch in his hand. The torch fell and immediately ignited the dry wood. A raging fire burned. The double shouted, telling ZD to run. ZD subconsciously ran into the fire, and the flames around her were extinguished. The crowd was stunned. Then, frost spread out from ZD's shadow, and a broken body slowly rose. Father! ZD was shocked. My daughter, I'm sorry. Father is here to protect you. ZD's dead father rushed to the crowd. Everyone was shocked and angry. Hei Wan pointed at ZD and screamed, Undead! You're a necromancer. Quick, kill her, burn her. ZD's father was quickly cut down by the crowd and cut into 8 pieces. The flames also burned vigorously again, burning ZD, her robe, and hair. In despair, ZD finally ran to the double's side. She hugged him, and the double kept apologizing. I'm sorry. I'm not your knight. I'm sorry. Then the double changed. He turned into a bear, with a bear head, bear claws, and bat wings. Hei Wan laughed. Did you see that? Now believe me, he's not the divine knight. He's just a monster. No, he's not. ZD was angry and frightened, and she refuted at the top of her voice. But everyone was roaring, "Burn him to death! Burn him to death! He was the one who attracted the beasts. Burn this group of bastards." We were all fooled by them. In the flames, the double shed tears. He was very disappointed. "So I'm really a monster, not Jinjin. ZD, why did you lie to me? Why did you lie to me?" "No, no." ZD woke up with a start and sat up abruptly. The light in the tent was dim, and the camp was quiet. "I'm having the same nightmare again." ZD gasped for a long time, and her heartbeat gradually calmed down. "I shouldn't run away anymore. I should tell the double the truth. Besides, I have to do something for him." ZD found a tube of medicine from her bag. The medicine was viscous and black, and if one looked carefully during the shaking process, one could see a touch of evil red in the black oil. What she got from the war traffickers was not only the double. This tube of medicine was also one of them. Seeing this tube of medicine, ZD hesitated again. She had hesitated many times because of this. But this time, she finally made up her mind. "Compared to you, the others are not important, right?" Chapter 205. ZD knew about the substitute's secret and was also worried about it. The difference between a beast transformation and a divine knight was too big. Once the secret was exposed, it would definitely cause an uproar, and everyone's reaction would be unpredictable. And there's also Jinjin. He also knows about this secret. It had to be said that the addition of Jinjin made ZD feel a lot of pressure. Keeping the secret and bearing the burden of this worry made both the substitute and ZD feel even more tormented. Finally, ZD made up her mind and used the beast transformation medicine given to her by the war dealer. ZD diluted the medicine and secretly put it into the food and water reserves. At first, when everyone ate the food and water, they didn't feel anything strange. But as they ate more and more, the toxins in their bodies accumulated. Members of the team started to fall sick. At first, no one paid much attention. But as time passed, more and more people fell sick, and the symptoms were very similar. Even the shipwright fell sick. Cough, cough, cough. The shipwright lay on the grass bed. His face was flushed, his breath was weak, his skin was swollen, and everything he saw was a blur. "I'm sorry, everyone, I've caused you trouble," the shipwright said weakly. "Rest well, don't think too much. As long as I'm here, I won't give up on anyone," the substitute tried to comfort the shipwright. Then, he slowly left the tent with ZD and the others. "How is it?" "Hey Juan," Jinjin immediately asked. "We can't afford to lose the shipwright. What kind of illness did he have?" ZD shook her head and sighed. "How many times have I told you? I'm just a pharmacist specializing in perfumes. Not a doctor. I can't find the cause of the illness. This shouldn't be poison, nor is it magic erosion. It's just an illness. If it was a normal case, I would have some confidence. But this illness is probably related to the environment here. I can't do anything about it," Zongu said in a low voice. "The shipwright isn't the only one with this illness. There are a few others. I suspect it's an infectious disease." Everyone's expression changed slightly. Infectious disease. The substitute's expression was solemn as he sighed inwardly. Although the symptoms of these sick people vary in severity, they're all very similar. "Should we give up on these people?" Sandao asked his substitute. "Give up?" "Hey Juan," Jinjin shook his head. "Without a shipwright, how are we going to build a ship? I'm too lacking in tools." ZD complained to her substitute. "I can't use magic, and my potion-making methods and skills are very limited. Now, I can only concoct some simple herbs to alleviate their pain." No one doubted ZD. These signs of illness were actually the result of the animal transformation medicine entering the body and transforming the human body. Because the body constitution of shipwrights was relatively weak. Even though ZD had diluted the potion and had taken it multiple times, their bodies were still unable to withstand it. However, although ZD looked helpless on the surface, she wasn't worried at all. Everything was under her control. Over the past few days, she had already concocted an antidote for this beastification medicine. She would dissolve this antidote in other potions and give it to some people who couldn't take it anymore. In this way, she could save their lives. The infectious disease became more and more serious, and more people fell sick. Zhonggu, Heiwan, Zhenjin, Songsu, and the others began to advocate abandoning these patients. But the substitute insisted on staying and protecting these companions. He even continued to visit the patients every day, doing his best to encourage them. Only ZD supported the substitute, but on the surface, she still used a tactful tone to persuade the substitute. Try not to visit these patients. It would be terrible if they were infected. The substitute didn't listen to this advice. The disease subsided. In fact, it was the animal transformation medicine that took effect, and ZD stopped this conspiracy in time. Some of them had strong physiques, which offset the effect of the medicine. Some of them were too weak, and ZD secretly used the antidote to save their lives. As long as I spread this medicine, it will trigger many of them to suddenly become beastified. But after becoming beastified, these people will lose their minds and go crazy. After a period of time, they will suddenly die on the spot. I hope I won't use this medicine. ZD didn't want to target these people. She only did this to cover for the substitute. Once the secret of the substitute's beastification was exposed, she could use the medicine to make some other people become beastified, thus making the substitute innocent. Then, she would take the opportunity to blame all the crimes on the island's environment. After leaving the humid and stuffy jungle, the group trekked all the way and finally arrived at the beach. Moving on the beach, the group's speed was much faster because there were no trees and vines blocking the way. But the good times didn't last long. The weather gradually became abnormal, and the heavy rain continued. In order to avoid the wood of the ship being soaked, the group had to return to the rainforest and use the trees and vegetation to shelter from the rain. After setting up camp, ZD took advantage of the night and secretly went to the substitute's tent. "Sir, this is the medicine I made. It is made with a poisonous mushroom as the main ingredient. The medicine is slightly poisonous, but it can boost the spirit, especially to dispel the cold and increase the taste. In fact, this was the antidote." Although the substitute's physique was very strong, after eating the food and water, there was also a lot of beastification medicine in his body. The substitute didn't suspect anything, and his eyes lit up. "Can you make more? Can you promote it to everyone?" ZD shook her head. "Only people with strong physiques can ignore this poison. At least the life level of black iron." "Thank you, ZD," Zhenjin said gently. ZD replied with a sweet smile. The whole plan was carried out very smoothly. Except for the girl, no one knew this secret. But there were accidents. Zhenjin found ZD and questioned her. "That night, someone saw you secretly go to the substitute's tent. What were you doing?" ZD hurriedly explained. Zhenjin looked at her with a scrutinizing gaze. "My fiancé, there's something wrong with you." Zhenjin shook his head. "You only need to know that I am Zhenjin. That one is just an imposter. When he's no longer useful, he'll welcome death. This damn island is not the whole world. Remember, you're ZD, the president of the Wisteria Chamber of Commerce, and my fiancé." ZD's eyes widened. "I know. Lord Zhenjin, what are you suspecting me of?" "You're on your own." Zhenjin's face was cold as he quietly retreated. "Did you notice? But I still have to spare your life." ZD's eyes flashed with a dark light. Zhenjin also ate the food and water, but ZD secretly gave him the antidote. The team continued forward, and they finally arrived at the first camp, but there was no one there. After reading the letter left behind, they came to the small valley and finally met up with the rest of the team. The substitute led the team and forcefully took over the leadership. After that, they successfully dealt with the threat of the underground sandworms and completely consolidated their authority. Baya and the others dismantled half of the Pig's Kiss, and the shipwright designed a new ship. They cleared out the beasts and began to build the ship. "How much do we lack in supplies?" The substitute broke the silence and asked. The shipwright replied, "It's mainly nails. We need a lot of iron, and that's the biggest problem. Don't we have enough oars? The substitute was puzzled. He was afraid of this at the time, so he turned into a monkey-tail brown bear and kept mining. Now, most of the oars in their hands were dug by the substitute alone. ZD replied, "We have to thank those monkey-tail brown bears. We have enough oars. But to extract the iron from the oars, we're currently using the method of dissolving the oars. We don't have enough for that." She looked at the substitute with a smile in her eyes, but the substitute did not notice it. The shipwright said that it would take at least half a year to build the ship. Jinjin was also not satisfied with time. The substitute was also disappointed. Half a year had passed, and the position of Baisha City's lord was probably already decided. ZD sighed helplessly in her heart. In the beginning, she wanted to get rid of the captain of the Pig's Kiss in order to buy time. But she did not expect that there would be a shipwreck and they would end up on the island of confusion, so the time was even longer. And at that time, when ZD landed, her mind was full of finding the alchemy factory and inheriting the legacy of the war traffickers. Everyone worked together, and the progress of the ship was rapid. Zhenjin finally had the opportunity to peek at the substitute's beast transformation. He fled back to the small valley in a panic and asked ZD for help. "Now, only you can help me." ZD's heart thumped. "Has this day finally come? Fortunately, I've already arranged it properly. If it doesn't work, we can only sacrifice some people." But on the surface, she stared at Zhenjin in disbelief. "Sir, how can you do this? You're taking too much of a risk. There's no need. What we need to do now is to escape from here with all our strength." Zhenjin was very frightened and wanted to clear his suspicion and dispel the substitute's intention to get rid of him. He used a letter that recorded the truth to threaten ZD. ZD looked threatened on the surface and calmed Zhenjin, but in her heart, she had already chosen to help him, because she knew very well, if the secret is exposed, the disadvantages will far outweigh the advantages. Her beast transformation potion is only a remedy. Zhenjin was full of fear. He questioned ZD, "Don't tell me you've fallen in love with him?" ZD was hit and quickly denied. "Sir, what are you thinking in your mind? I've fallen in love with him? A substitute? A werbeast?" This time, Zhenjin was not easily frightened. The fear stimulated his mind to be clearer than usual. Yes, it's ridiculous. Falling in love with a substitute. Falling in love with a werbeast. This is really too unwise. It's definitely not something a president of the Chamber of Commerce should do. But love, this kind of thing, it's really hard to say. When love gets to the head, even the most rational person in the world will become a hopeless fool. It's very dangerous. ZD, your current behavior makes me feel that you're in great danger now. I hope you can see the reality clearly. Even if you fall in love with him, there will only be a tragedy between the two of you. Think about it. When he finds out the truth, when he finds out that he's not a holy knight at all, but a lowly substitute, when he finds out that the person he loves the most, who he always thought was his fiancée, is actually the person who deceived him the most. What will he do? What will he think of you? These words were like a sharp arrow, shooting into the deepest part of ZD's heart. She couldn't help but stop breathing. At this moment, she suddenly realized that what she was most afraid of was not the exposure of the substitute's secret. Instead, she was worried about how the substitute would view her once the truth was exposed. She knew that in the substitute's heart, she was a perfect fiancée, considerate, sincere, and supportive. If the truth was exposed, how disappointed would the substitute be? How would she face him? The substitute was a real knight, but what about her? In the conspiracy of the war traffickers, she was an accomplice. Zhenjin was her disguise. She killed the captain. She indirectly caused the shipwreck, and she was the one who drugged the beast transformation drug. What will he think of the real me? This question made the girl extremely weak, and the courage in her heart was blown away. You're a knight, but I'm actually not your princess. P.S. There will be more tomorrow. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.